Hello, I'm the storyteller. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Hopefully the stories I share will bring you moments of relaxation and reflection. If you love these stories, please like, share with everyone and subscribe to the channel. That is a great source of encouragement for me to continue telling new stories. Now, relax and let's start the story. From the moment I stepped into that old house, I felt the difference. A cold feeling permeated the place, as if the surrounding air had an inexplicable presence. I chose this house because it is located right in the city center, where I can easily move and is convenient for my work. But no one told me about the things this house kept hidden in the dark. The house has 2 floors, tall windows let in sunlight during the day, but when night falls, all the light is swallowed up. I was quickly caught up in work, working all night in a terrifyingly quiet space. All I need to do is edit a few boring documents, but there's always something strange about the atmosphere here, like a presence is watching my every move. On the first night I stayed, I clearly remember standing in the living room, under the dim light of the table lamp, the wooden floor creaking under every step. Suddenly, I felt a cold stream of air brush my neck. I turned around, but only saw the darkness of the stairs leading to the second floor, quiet and nothing moving. I reassured myself, thinking it was just the feeling of loneliness in this old house. However, around midnight, while I was working intently, sounds began to appear. At first, it was just vague whispers, but as time went on, they became clearer. The sound seemed to come from upstairs, a disjointed voice, muttering words I couldn't understand. I stood up, my heart pounding in my chest, my hands drenched in sweat. Surely I didn't hear wrong. I decided to go upstairs to check. The second floor of the house has 2 bedrooms and a small, dark hallway, with only weak light coming from outside. With every step I took, the floor creaked, and I felt like invisible eyes were watching my every move. Upstairs, I checked each room one by one, but they were all empty. Nothing unusual. However, I couldn't ignore the strange feeling, as if there was some presence waiting for me. The air was thick, and I felt the eerie feeling, as if there was something lurking around the corner. But I found nothing, except silence and cold that seeped into my bones. Then I reassured myself that it was all just my imagination. But the following nights, the whispers appeared again. The whispers were faint at first, like a breeze passing through a crack in the door, but then they became clearer and clearer. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was deliberately trying to get my attention. I started to feel worried, but continued working, forcing myself to forget those sounds. One evening, I couldn't stand it anymore. I decided to tell a neighbor about the strange things that were happening. He just laughed, saying that old houses often have strange noises, cold winds or unexplained sounds. But I couldn't simply ignore the feeling that something was trying to attract me. Late one night, while I was sitting at work, the whispers came again, this time they were clearer than ever. They sounded like a warning, as if someone was whispering threats from somewhere in the house. My reason was shaken, and I couldn't stop thinking about something lurking in the darkness. I decided to face it. At about 2 a.m., I grabbed a flashlight and climbed the stairs. The floor groaned under my feet, as if protesting my actions. I stopped in front of the first bedroom, clutching my flashlight. The feeling of fear hit me like a wave, and I couldn't stop. The door opened, and I entered. The bedroom was dark, only weak moonlight shining through the window. Nothing unusual. However, when I took the flashlight into the dark corners, a strange feeling enveloped me. I felt the presence, but I couldn't see it. I continued to check the room, but nothing changed. I turned around, my heart pounding harder than ever, but there was nothing there but darkness. I decided to check out the second room. But this time, the whisper came back, almost touching my skin. That voice, although incomprehensible, was full of urgency, as if begging for something. I felt like I was being pushed to a limit that I couldn't control. My flashlight trembled in my hand, and I felt the cold rising from the ground. The atmosphere was so heavy that I couldn't breathe. I didn't dare look back, because I knew there was something I couldn't explain lurking in the darkness. But when I turned around, there was nothing. There was only silence, only the sound of my rapid breathing in the air. After that night, I could no longer deceive myself. I couldn't shake the strange feeling the house gave me, a gloomy feeling, as if it were living and breathing with me. The nights that followed became much more difficult. Every time night falls, the air in the house gets thicker, and whispers start appearing as soon as I try to work. Those sounds were no longer coincidences, they were like reminders, invisible warnings, repeating over and over again from a source I couldn't identify. One night, as I was late editing a document, I felt a presence stronger than ever. The door in front of me, although tightly closed, began to vibrate slightly, as if an invisible hand was trying to push it open. The lights in the room flickered, the light was weak as if it didn't want to shine in the darkness. Suddenly, a small noise rang out from behind me. My heart jumped, I turned around immediately, but didn't see anything. However, the feeling that something was standing right behind me wouldn't go away. A cold stream of air ran down my spine, making me shiver. I stood there, trying to breathe deeply to calm myself. I told myself that all of this was just stress, the accumulated fatigue from constant work, but I couldn't erase the image of pitch-black darkness covering me, as if the walls of this house had come to life. I decided to step outside the office and down the stairs to check out the rooms. But when I reached the end of the hallway, a cold feeling ran through my body, as if someone was standing next to me. And then I heard a whisper. This time, it wasn't simply vague sounds. I could hear every word, even though they seemed distorted, incomprehensible. That voice seemed closer than ever, it hung in the air, as if someone was standing right next to me, whispering in my ear. Run away. Those words echoed in my head, I felt like I couldn't take it anymore. Those words were repeated again and again, each time more urgently. Run away, there's no time left. Fear began to overwhelm me. I quickly turned around and ran upstairs to check again. My bedroom is no longer the same as before. Every step I took on the stairs sounded like drums hitting my ears. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me, as if I were prey and this house was a trap. When I entered the first room, the flashlight in my hand trembled strangely. I turned it on and looked into the corners of the room. There's nothing but darkness. But then, when the light hit a mirror hanging on the wall, I saw it. A faint silhouette was reflected in the mirror. I stopped, my heart beating strongly in my chest. That figure is not mine. It stood still, not moving, only its eyes lit up like two lights. I couldn't see its face clearly, but I could feel that it was an inexplicable presence. In that moment, I felt like it was looking at me, waiting for me to react. But I couldn't move, couldn't take my eyes off that look. I felt frozen, my body couldn't move. Finally, I turned away and ran down the stairs. But when I reached the middle of the hallway, suddenly a loud noise rang out from the second bedroom. There was a loud bang, as if something was thrown hard onto the floor. I stopped, took a deep breath to calm myself, but I knew something had changed. I turned around and walked upstairs again, no longer as scared as before, but my fear still didn't stop. Arriving at the second room, I found the door slightly open, and a cold breeze blew across my face. The closet door was wide open, and I could feel something wrong inside. As I approached, a cold wind hit my face, forcing me to step back. The flashlight I was holding in my hand suddenly flickered and then went out, leaving me in complete darkness. I felt as if my legs were trapped under an invisible weight, unable to move. Then I heard the whisper again, this time clearer than ever. Don't open, don't open. That voice seemed to be warning me, but I couldn't resist my curiosity and urge. I pushed the cabinet door open, and the flashlight light immediately shone into the dark space inside. And when I looked, I saw something inexplicable. A coat hangs in the closet, but not as usual. It seemed to be moving, like an invisible hand was pulling it out of the closet. My coat swayed like a disturbed shadow, and I felt a pair of eyes looking at me from the darkness behind me. But when I turned around to look, there was nothing more, just empty space. I couldn't explain it, and in that moment, I knew that this was not a figment of my imagination. This house has something terrible going on. And I can't leave, because I know it doesn't want me to leave. The cabinet door slowly closed, creating a deafening screeching sound. I couldn't move, my whole body was frozen in fear. The feeling of something watching me did not lessen but became stronger. With every step I took, the surrounding air became heavier, as if it was surrounding me from all sides. The flashlight in my hand flickered again, but this time I didn't dare look away from the shadows behind the closet. A strange urge made me walk towards the door. The feeling of fear has almost become a shadow, clinging to me, making it impossible for me to escape. When I turned around, I noticed that the surrounding space began to change. The hallway in front of me became unnaturally long, as if it was stretching out endlessly, stretching on forever, making it impossible for me to see the end. That vague feeling confused me. I couldn't remember how long I had been walking, or how many steps I had stepped on the wooden floor, but when I looked back, I discovered that I was standing in the middle of a different scene. The house, already dark and cold, now became strangely gloomy. Dark, shapeless shadows seemed to move around me. I felt their presence, as if they were waiting for me, watching me, waiting for me to do something I couldn't understand. Suddenly, I heard a whisper, this time not from far away. It's right next to my ear. A low and hoarse voice. Find it. This voice did not come from a person, but from the walls of the house itself, as if this house was talking to me, reminding me of something I had overlooked. My heart was pounding in my chest. I couldn't understand it, but I knew that something terrible was waiting for me in the darkness. The whispers seemed to engulf me in fear, but a part of me, a very strange part, still couldn't give up the feeling of needing to find out, needing to discover what was hidden. I decided to move on, even though my fear grew stronger. I went upstairs again, this time it felt like darkness surrounded me. The air in the house became thick, and with every step I took, I felt like I was running into an invisible wall, as if there was a force pulling me towards somewhere I didn't want to go. As I approached the second bedroom door, I noticed that it wasn't closing as tightly as it should. The door opened slightly, and a cold wind blew strongly from inside to outside, making my hair stand on end. I couldn't resist, walked in. In the dark room, there was nothing but pitch black darkness, and I clearly felt a strange presence covering this room. Suddenly, a loud noise rang out from behind me. I turned around and saw the door slowly closing, as if an invisible hand was controlling it. But when I turned around to check, I couldn't explain what I saw next. On the bed, an old coat, not mine, was lying neatly. But when I looked closer, I realized that it was moving. It wasn't due to wind blowing or impact from anywhere. It was moving, as if someone was putting it on. I felt a suffocating fear, unable to breathe. My thoughts were confused, I tried to move, but my feet felt stuck to the ground. A strange sound came from the jacket, like a sigh, lingering in the air. I stared at the shirt, but then suddenly, my flashlight flickered and went out. I stood in complete darkness, unable to see anything, only sounds, whispers, and my breathing echoed in the room. At this point, I couldn't stand it anymore. I turned around and hurried out of the room, but as soon as I turned my back, a loud noise rang out behind me. A horrifying, prolonged scream came from a dark corner of the room. I couldn't tell what it was, but it sounded like a distorted voice, filled with anger and despair. I rushed down the stairs, not looking back, not caring about anything but getting out of this house. But when I got closer to the door, I realized that the door couldn't be opened. The door latch was stuck, unable to move even a millimeter. I hurriedly turned around, but when I looked up the stairs, I saw it. A dark figure, standing silently at the top of the stairs, only its eyes shining in the darkness. Those eyes seemed to attract me, as if they wanted me to come closer, as if they wanted me to never be able to escape. Despite everything, I still stood there, unable to move. I feel it approaching. Light footsteps sounded on the stairs, but made no sound. And then I heard that voice again, this time clearly, right in my ear, "You can't leave." I couldn't escape the feeling of being surrounded. It seemed like this house had recognized my weakness and decided not to leave me alone. There was a suffocating feeling in the air. It felt like there was an invisible force pressing down on my every breath, making it impossible for me to escape. As each day passed, I felt myself gradually losing control. Unseen footsteps, whispers, invisible movements from the darkness, all made me unable to calm down anymore. I used to think that maybe fatigue and stress made me imagine things. But right now, as I sit in my dark bedroom with only a weak light, I'm no longer sure of anything. I wondered if the house was really alive, if there really was something watching me from the shadows, or if it was all just a product of my mind, too exhausted, too worried. But then, when the shadows on the wall began to stretch and curl into strange shapes, I knew I couldn't deceive myself anymore. That oppressive air, those inexplicable movements in the darkness, were all forcing me into a corner, and I had no way out. The shadows on the wall danced, changed shape, slithered back and forth as if they were alive. The weak light of the lamp only made those shapes more ghostly, as if they were playing with me, drawing me into extreme confusion. Right now, I feel like there's nothing left but chaos in my mind. Anxiety and feelings of fear took over me completely. Every little noise, every unclear movement startled me. But I can't stop. That was the moment I knew, if I didn't face it, I would never be at peace again. And then, just as I was starting to think that everything might just be an illusion of a tired mind, I heard a whisper, this time so clear that it felt like it was right in my ear. It felt like someone was standing next to me, whispering in my ear, as if mocking me, mocking my weakness. "Stop hiding, we know you can't leave." The whisper echoed in my head, making every fiber of my body numb. I can't breathe anymore. My head was spinning and my heart was beating so hard it felt like it was about to burst. Something invisible, something I couldn't see, was getting closer, just waiting for me to get even more scared and confused. The wooden floor under my feet began to creak, as if footsteps were moving on it, even though no one was there. Those steps were steady, as if someone was walking around me, not in a hurry, not in a panic, but full of calculation. I stood motionless, unable to move, although I clearly felt that it was approaching me, approaching me. My heart was pounding. I clutched the flashlight in my hand, trying to sweep the light into the dark corners of the room, but there was nothing. There was nothing but thick darkness covering everything. When my light shined on the door, I saw it, a shadowy figure standing by the door, almost blending into the darkness. I couldn't believe my eyes. Everything became blurry, and in that moment, I felt like an invisible presence was pulling me towards it. But in just that moment, it disappeared. My flashlight was still on, but I couldn't see anything anymore. The cold enveloped me, cold waves passing over my skin, making me cower. I can't bear it anymore. I can't stand here forever, I can't let myself be surrounded by that darkness. I rushed towards the door, but just as I was about to open it, I heard a loud noise from behind. The footsteps sounded clearly again, as if someone was chasing me. I tripped over my own feet and stumbled down the stairs. The darkness seemed to stretch on forever, the hallway stretching out before me like a path to an inevitable death. The feeling of being watched was so strong that I couldn't turn back. I could only run, run faster, run farther. And then I heard it, this time closer than ever. The whisper, full of rage and despair, almost wrapped around me, "Run, if you can." My heart seemed to stop beating. I looked around, but there was no one. There was only a whisper, like something invisible was chasing me, engulfing me in desperate fear. The door in front of me, where I thought I would exit, wouldn't open. I can't escape anymore. I no longer know where I am. The surrounding space seemed to become hazy, as if everything was being stretched and disappearing. My shadow on the wall danced in the faint light of the flashlight, but even the shadow itself no longer seemed real. It twisted and stretched like a living creature, and I couldn't take my eyes off it, even though I knew I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Footsteps sounded from behind me. This time it wasn't just a vague noise anymore. They were clear, coherent, and deliberate, as if someone were walking around me, waiting for me to make a wrong move, waiting for me to collapse. I turned around, my heart pounding in my chest, but when I looked into the darkness, there was nothing. Nobody. There was only cold and heavy air surrounding. This feeling of being watched grew stronger and stronger, to the point where I couldn't stop. With every step I took, I felt I was getting closer to something inescapable, something that was deliberately chasing me. Each darkness in the room seemed thicker, as if it wanted to swallow me whole, making me a part of it. The footsteps from behind me didn't stop, they kept repeating, getting closer and closer, as if something invisible was watching and approaching me from all sides. I couldn't see it, but I felt its presence, the tension in the air, the darkness that clung to me like an invisible shadow. Suddenly, I heard a sigh. The sound was so close that it startled me. It was not the sound of human breathing, but the sound of something that had not breathed for a long time. A dry breath, as if some creature was carefully waiting, listening for me. At this point, I couldn't stay awake anymore. The fatigue has reached its maximum, but I still can't get rid of the confused feeling in my head. I stood still, trying to listen, but there was nothing but a tiny whisper, as if someone were reciting an incomprehensible spell. My head was spinning and my heart was beating fast, unable to stop. My vision started to blur, and I felt like I was about to lose consciousness. Then suddenly, a cold wind blew, cold enough to cut the skin. The bedroom door opened with an echoing creaking sound. I turned around, and in that moment, I saw a dark shape standing in the darkness. It was tall and muscular, but indistinct. Only the eyes lit up, the red light was as bright as a fire. Those eyes stared at me, not blinking, not moving away. I can't breathe. Every hair on my body stood up. My mind is no longer alert enough to think. I tried to move, but my feet felt stuck to the floor. I couldn't leave, I couldn't run away. The figure took a step towards me. Just one step, but it seemed to have gone through both space and time. Each step it took made a sound like the sound of cracking rocks. I couldn't cry out. Only its eyes, as if sucking all my life, engulfed me in darkness. The shadow said nothing. Not a word, not a sound. But I know clearly what it wants me to do. It wanted me to be scared, wanted me to realize that I couldn't escape anymore. This house, this dark space, has accepted me as a part of it. I cannot separate from it. My heart beat faster, while my eyes couldn't move away from those bright eyes. And then, at that moment, another sigh rang out, not from that figure, but from the darkness around me. A cold wind blew, carrying a sound like a warning, "You have arrived." The door behind me suddenly slammed shut. I turned around and saw the room was empty. But the darkness is still thick. I can't say anything. Cannot move. My vision blurred, and only a cold feeling remained. I know I've been captured, swallowed up by this house. I can't breathe. My breathing became rapid, suffocating in my chest. It feels like I'm sinking into darkness, unable to turn back, unable to escape. Every step I take, every moment, I feel more clearly the presence of something invisible that is following my every move, sucking every last bit of strength and hope left in me. The door behind me was still closed, but it couldn't stop the threat that was gradually approaching. Darkness, that invisible shadow, surrounded me. Every corner in this house is now a trap that I cannot escape. I tried to move, but everything around me seemed to be shrinking, forming invisible walls, pushing me into a corner with no way out. Everything becomes hazy. The dark shadows on the wall were no longer an illusion, but they began to move and rotate around me, winding like living creatures. I couldn't see them clearly, but I could feel their movements. They enveloped me, as if wanting to drown me into an invisible abyss. I turned and looked into the darkness. My eyes couldn't open any wider, couldn't see anything but a dense darkness, as if it was swallowing everything. But then, when I looked closely, I saw a shape appear out of the darkness, from behind the open window. It was a tall figure, with blurred features, like an unidentifiable monster. The figure stood still, but I felt its movement in the air. It is not a living creature, but something invisible, an embodiment of evil. Its eyes glowed, not light, but the light of nothingness, a pair of dead eyes looking right through me. A feeling of fear welled up inside me, like a powerful wave hitting the shore. My whole body felt paralyzed, I couldn't move, I couldn't run away. I could only stand there, staring into its eyes, as if they were sucking my soul, swallowing me into darkness. A voice rang out, this time it wasn't a whisper anymore. It was clear, sharp, as if the darkness itself was speaking to me. You can't escape this place. This is your place, ours. I was shaking, but couldn't leave. I know clearly that all my efforts are in vain. Every step I take, every blink of an eye, I feel like I'm chained to this house, stuck to the evil that surrounds me. That feeling was like an invisible suction force, pulling me into a bottomless pit, where there was no way out. Suddenly, I heard footsteps, but this time it wasn't from far away, but right behind me. One step, then another, steady, strong, as if someone was standing next to me, following my every move. Sweat drenched my back, my hands were shaking, the flashlight in my hand no longer seemed bright enough to chase away the darkness. I turned around and saw darkness rising, overwhelming everything. The figure got closer, it seemed to be moving towards me, and I felt the stuffiness in the air. All my senses were paralyzed. I can't differentiate between what is real and what is an illusion. It all became a bad nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. The figure took another step, I couldn't move. My head was spinning, and a sudden wave of dizziness hit me. I felt the bone-chilling cold radiating from it. That cold did not come from the air, but from its very presence. I couldn't open my eyes, everything around me was nothing but solid, suffocating blackness, and in that despair, I knew that nothing could save me. Run, if you can, the voice said again, but this time it wasn't a warning, but a scorn. It was not threatening, but simply engulfed me in a feeling of helplessness. I tried to shake my head, tried to scream, but no sound came out of my mouth. I couldn't do anything but stand still, looking into the glowing eyes of the shadow approaching me. But then, everything suddenly changed. The darkness around me disappeared, and I felt like I was falling into an endless void. It felt like my whole body was being pulled down, like I was falling into a bottomless pit, and everything around me was just whispers, cold winds blowing through me. I no longer know where I am, I only feel that this evil will not let me go. The house, the darkness, that invisible shape, all were leading me to an ending that I could not avoid. Every breath I took felt like I was carrying a burden, as heavy as a block of stone on my chest. I can't move, can't run. The house, or rather, the darkness that was overwhelming it, enveloped me, took possession of me. I felt life and death blending together, as if they were a single, inseparable thing. My vision blurred, I felt dizzy, and I felt like I was falling into a coma, unable to distinguish between reality and illusion. But then, a strange noise rang out again. Not a whisper, not an invisible step. This was another sound, a sharp sound, as if someone was tapping on the wall, on the door, or even on my own mind. That pounding sound was like a call, urging me to go somewhere I didn't want to go. I tried to turn away, but the black darkness around me seemed to be tightening, blocking all escape. The air became colder than ever, and every hair on my body stood up. It felt like someone was standing behind me, just a few inches away. Then, suddenly, a cold wind blew, causing the light of the lamp to waver and waver as if it were about to go out. I can't bear it anymore. I turned around, wanting to see something, but there was only endless darkness covering me. And then, I heard clear footsteps from behind, not the light footsteps of someone passing by, but heavy, strong footsteps, as if someone was approaching me with each calculated step. I turned around, and I couldn't believe my eyes. Standing right before me was a tall, twisted figure, as if it were created from the darkness itself. Its eyes, not as bright as fire, but a deep black color, stared at me. It had no face, no clear shape, but I felt the hostility and evil emanating from it. "It's time," said the hoarse voice, this time not a whisper, but a growl, filled with contempt. "You can't run away anymore. You belong here. This whole house, and us." My heart seemed to stop beating. I couldn't move, couldn't scream, I could only stand still, staring at those eyes full of desperation and threat. A cold feeling spread throughout my body, as if I were standing under a falling block of ice, buried in darkness. It walked towards me, not in a hurry, just slowly, calculatingly. Every step of it made me feel an invisible force that was gradually suffocating all my hopes. My mind was spinning, as if someone was pulling me into a bottomless abyss, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. It felt like a breaking wave hit me. I couldn't get out, couldn't see clearly, couldn't move. Those eyes were still staring at me, and I felt like I was being sucked into a black hole. With each passing second, it seemed to draw me closer to destruction. I felt the coldness from it, as if it was swallowing every part of my soul. "We've been waiting for a long time." That voice rang out again, this time like a confession, full of excitement. "You think you can escape? You don't. You belong to us. This house, it will swallow you up. I feel like I am no longer a human being, but just a soul trapped in this body, unable to escape." I wanted to scream, but my throat felt tight, unable to make a sound. I wanted to run, but my feet felt stuck to the ground, unable to move. The feeling of despair grew stronger, and I knew I couldn't fight it. That figure still stood before me, and I felt like I couldn't escape that presence. Each of its breaths was steady, heavy, like a condemnation. I wanted to struggle, but I couldn't. I was stuck in a trap that I couldn't get out of. Suddenly, I felt a cold hand, invisible but strong, touch my shoulder. A numb feeling ran down my spine. I turned around, but there was nothing. Nobody. There was only darkness, only a feeling of coldness and emptiness surrounding me. And then, I knew I had lost everything. This house has taken over me. I'm not me anymore. I cannot escape that obsession. The strange feeling I had in my old house still did not let me go. Quiet nights, seemingly peaceful, were always interrupted by strange sounds that I couldn't explain. It was not the natural noise of an old house, it was something different, something invisible, incomprehensible. I will never forget the feeling as I stood there, in the dark, staring at the small wooden statue I received from my colleague. When he gave that gift to me, I only felt a momentary strangeness. But now, when I look at the face carved on the statue, I feel like something is changing. The lines and eyes are no longer still. That face seemed to stare at me, as if it was waiting for me to discover something, something I couldn't see right away. I tried to ignore it, but I couldn't. A terrible fear rose within me, as if I couldn't look away, I couldn't turn off the thoughts that surrounded me. This house has become a place where I no longer feel safe, no matter how hard I try to leave it. Since receiving that statue, I haven't been able to sleep peacefully. I moved out, but the nightmares continued. Especially that night, when I sat alone in my new living room, staring at the statue I had placed on the shelf. It feels like this new house has not escaped the haunting, an oppressive silence covers everything. It felt like the house was holding its breath, and I, a part of it, couldn't escape the horror that awaited. Every sound, every feeling pushed me into a world where I couldn't distinguish what was real and what was an illusion. Even when I look at the statue, I feel it looking back at me. Its eyes were not the eyes of a human, but the eyes of evil, the eyes of something that had lived a long time and was waiting. That feeling comes not only from the statue, but from everything around me. I don't know where I am anymore. How could I be sure I wasn't haunted anymore when my new home reflected my inexplicable fears? At this point, I couldn't help but think that maybe the obsession didn't come from the old house, but from these very items. The statue, a strange gift from a colleague, carried something I couldn't understand. I remembered what he said when he gave me that gift. His words kept echoing in my head, "I can't stand it anymore. It gives me nightmares." But when he gave the statue to me, I didn't fully understand its meaning. I didn't think I would be affected, but now, every night I see that face. Every time I tried to rest, I saw those eyes in the darkness, and then heard strange whispers, as if coming from that wooden statue itself. In an unexpected moment, I felt something, a small movement, in the statue. Not a physical change, but a movement in my mind. The look of that face seemed to be changing, as if it was trying to tell me something. A cold feeling ran down my spine. I can't stop. I can't leave this room. Unable to bear it anymore, I decided to check the statue again. When I picked it up, I clearly felt a power, as if an invisible force was controlling me. Suddenly, I saw an inscription engraved at the foot of the statue. "Run, before it's too late." The voice in my head, the whispers in the dark night, it all came back to me. Every word, every sentence, as if they were written in advance. Run, before it's too late. Am I being pursued by something inexplicable? Or is it really the darkness from the old house that has clung to me, now in this new house? I stared at the inscription under the statue. Each word was like a sharp knife stabbing into my mind. Run, before it's too late. Those words were like a warning that couldn't be ignored, and in that moment, I felt that everything I had experienced was not a coincidence. It is a truth, an obsession that I cannot escape. A cold feeling enveloped me, and I couldn't leave the statue behind. My hand held it tightly, but not because I wanted to keep it, but because I couldn't let it go. The eyes of the face carved in wood seemed to be staring at me. Those eyes not only reflected me, but also reflected the fears deep in my mind. Every time I try to ignore it, I feel a strange attraction that makes me unable to take my eyes off it. Stop looking, I told myself, but part of me couldn't stop. It felt like an invisible force was inflaming my fear, and I felt like I no longer had the right to make decisions. I started thinking about the words my colleague said before giving me the statue. He said it brought nightmares, but I never thought I would get caught up in something so bad. My eyes couldn't take my eyes off the statue, even though I felt like I was sinking into a black hole, as if it was swallowing me up little by little. I blinked, trying to dispel the blurred images in my head, but they didn't go away. My shadow no longer seemed to be reflected on the wall. Instead, there was a blurry, flickering shape, as if someone was standing behind me. Suddenly, I heard a laugh. A low, uncomfortable laugh, as if someone was watching me from behind. I turned around, but there was no one. There was no one in sight, just silence. But the feeling, that feeling, it's still there, almost touching me. That laugh kept echoing in my head, filling the space around me. I can't bear it anymore. I threw the statue to the ground, not because I wanted to destroy it, but because I couldn't let it hold me any longer. But when the statue collided with the floor, a strange noise rang out, as if there was an invisible force preventing it from hitting the ground. I quickly turned around to look, and in an instant, I saw it. The statue is not on the ground. It had turned around, stood up, and now the eyes carved into it were not just looking at me, but as if they were moving, as if something from within was coming to life. I stood there, my feet pinned to the floor. My eyes couldn't move away from the statue, and in that moment, I understood that I had made a big mistake. The evil that I thought was just the delusion of a tired mind, turned out to be something that exists in reality, something that I cannot explain, something that I cannot ignore. The air in the room became stuffy, as if the house was trying to force me inside itself. The whole room shook gently, and I could hear whispers, this time not in my head but from hidden corners of the room. That whisper was like a call, as if this house was inviting me to return to the haunting. I can't breathe anymore. Every breath was heavy, as if something was squeezing my chest. I want to run, but my body cannot move. I could only stand there, looking at the statue, feeling its presence, the threat coming from the object itself. Suddenly, I heard the window open. A small noise, as if someone was entering. I turned around, but there was no one. The window only opened a little, the light from the street lamp outside shone into the room, but the atmosphere was still cold and stuffy. The whispering grew louder and louder, seemingly echoing in space. I turned back to look at the statue. And in that moment, I saw it. Those eyes no longer stopped at me. It was looking at something else, looking into the darkness behind me. I turned around, and I saw it. A shadowy figure stood at the window. But it's not an ordinary figure. It was tall, and its entire body was covered in darkness. I couldn't see the face clearly, only a pair of bright eyes looking at me, as if waiting for something. Something I can't stop thinking about. I can't think of anything else. Every thought in my head felt like it was being torn apart. That wooden statue, it was not just a decoration, but a door leading me into another world, a world full of obsession and darkness. The eyes carved into that face, now no longer just looked at me, but they were looking through me, into the fear deep in my soul. Its presence in the room made the air so stuffy that I couldn't breathe. The whispers that I thought had disappeared returned, crashing into my head like invisible waves. I can't say what I'm feeling. Everything seemed to be suffocating me, squeezing me from all sides. I cannot continue to live in this obsession. I used to think that leaving my old house would be the way to get rid of it, but I was wrong. Even in this new apartment, I still cannot escape that invisible threat. At night, I heard whispers again, strange sounds lurking in the cracks in the floorboards, in the sound of the wind rushing through the windows. And then, one night, I couldn't close my eyes anymore. It felt like someone was standing next to me, right next to me, waiting for me to realize something. I opened my eyes, and I saw the wooden statue. It was no longer sitting on the shelf. It has moved. Yes, I didn't imagine it, it really moved. It wasn't on the shelf like before, but had moved closer to the window, and its eyes were looking straight at me again. Not a normal look, but a disdainful way, as if it was waiting for me to do something I couldn't avoid. A feeling of fear rose within me, and I couldn't stop looking at that face. It felt like there was something waiting for me, something I couldn't explain. Then I heard a noise. It was a light tapping sound, as if someone was tapping on the window. I didn't dare look back, but the urge inside me was strong. I turned around, and couldn't believe my eyes. The darkness outside the window seemed to be more than just a part of the night. A tall, shadowy figure stood outside the window, bright eyes looking at me, but not like a streetlight shining into the room. Those eyes, like light reflected in the abyss, looked right through me. Not just looking, but drawing me into the darkness. My lips were dry and I couldn't move, but I couldn't take my eyes off that shadow. I wanted to scream, but my voice couldn't make a sound. I felt like I was being sucked into that shadow, as if it was trying to pull me into a place I couldn't escape from. Then I realized it. The shadow is not a person, but something invisible. It wasn't a living person, but a spirit, a ghost that I couldn't understand. It is controlling the statue, controlling everything that happens in this house. It was not a coincidence, but an entity that had existed for a long time, hiding in this house, in inanimate objects, to spy on me. Its presence is now not just a haunting, but something real, growing in this house. I feel like I'm not safe anymore. There is no place, no space that is peaceful. Suddenly, a cold wind blew through the window, causing the light of the lamp to waver. I stood up, unable to bear it anymore, but when I turned back to look at the wooden statue, I saw that it had moved again. This time, it wasn't just looking at me, but was pointing towards the door, as if it was calling for someone to come in. When I looked back, I saw that the figure had entered the room, not through the window, but from the darkness itself. An extreme fear rose within me. I turned around and ran out, not daring to look back. That statue, that shape, that darkness, it all seemed to want to swallow me whole. I ran through the hallway, my legs felt heavy, as if the ground beneath my feet was pulling me down. But every time I look back, I only see darkness. There was nothing but darkness, nothing but silence as thick as a tomb. And then, I stopped, not because I was tired, but because I couldn't keep running anymore. The wooden statue appeared in front of me, not through the window or door. It stood right in the hallway, on the cold tile floor. Those eyes looked at me, looking straight into my soul. It felt like an invisible force was squeezing my heart. I couldn't move, couldn't do anything but stand there, looking into the lifeless eyes of the statue. "You can't get out," that voice, this time clearer than ever, rang in my head. "You already belong to me. This whole house, everything you see, they belong to me." I couldn't move. It felt like every part of my body was frozen, unable to move, unable to call for help. My eyes could not leave the wooden statue, which was no longer an inanimate object. It has become a living entity, a creature that I cannot explain. Its look was no longer a lifeless look. The eyes on the statue did not just look at me, but as if they were looking into the depths of my soul, as if wanting to draw me into its own darkness. An indescribable feeling of fear rose within me, but I couldn't move, I couldn't scream. "Run," the voice said again, this time clearer than ever, as if it were speaking from the statue itself. "Run, before it's too late." But I can't run. The statue seemed to be drawing me closer, forcing me to stand still in a terror I couldn't escape. I felt the air around me was thick and suffocating. The house seemed to be shrinking, the walls seemed to be about to collapse, and darkness was overwhelming, with no place to hide. I turned around, but there was no way out. The room door was locked tightly. The floor was as hard as stone, making it impossible to take even a single step. At this point, I knew that nothing could save me. That black shadow, which I thought was just a blurry image in my nightmares, now appeared right before my eyes. It was not just a shadow, but an entity, shaped, with glowing eyes, glaring at me, as if waiting for me to surrender. "Can't escape," the voice in my head said again. "There's no escaping it anymore. This house has swallowed you up, you can't leave." My heart was pounding in my chest. I felt a surge of fear, as if my heart would burst. My eyes began to blur, I couldn't breathe anymore, and this feeling of not being able to escape, like a grip tightening on me, became stronger and stronger. "It's time for you to pay," a voice said from the darkness, and this time I couldn't tell if it was the statue's voice, or something even more horrifying, the one controlling everything I was experiencing. The whole room became dim, as if the space around me was shrinking. I felt a cold breeze blowing over me, and unable to resist, I turned around. But there's nothing left in this room anymore. It was just me and the darkness, and the only faint light was from that shadow's eyes, slowly approaching me. This unbearable fear took over my entire body. I have no strength left to run, no strength left to resist. All the feelings, all the previous memories, were now fading, leaving only one overwhelming feeling, a feeling of despair. This house, this statue, this shadow, they all took possession of me. When I turned around, I saw darkness swallowing everything around me, and at that moment, I felt like I no longer existed. I'm not me anymore. I am part of it. Part of the darkness, of the evil that is silently rising. There was only one thought left in my mind: I can't escape. And then, everything disappeared. I couldn't escape the feeling that there was something deeper going on, something more than simply a haunting from the house or the statue. That feeling grew stronger, as if there was a strange connection between me and the things I witnessed. I started to feel like I was caught up in a game I couldn't fully understand. So I decided to go back to my old apartment, not because I wanted to face my fears, but because I felt that there was something that hadn't been explained. Maybe if I understood better about the house, about the statue, about their past, I would be able to find a way out of these strange things. This time, I didn't just come to face what was haunting me. I came looking for answers. I returned to the room where the statue once stood. That night, I didn't feel a strange presence right away, but there was a heavy silence, as if the house was waiting for me. The walls were cold, the light was dim from the window. I approached the table where the wooden statue had been placed. But it's no longer there. At first, I thought I was imagining everything. Maybe I'm wrong, but the truth is, I can't find the wooden statue. I started searching all over the room, in every corner. I opened the closet door, flipped through each book, checked under the carpet, but there was nothing. It disappeared. This makes me feel more confused than ever. Am I really experiencing all these strange things, or is this a product of my tired mind and the mounting anxiety I've been experiencing all this time? I continued searching the house. But when I walked to the living room, I heard a small sound again. It was a noise I had heard before, a soft whisper, barely audible, but I could make it out. I ran closer, and this time I couldn't be mistaken. That whisper came from behind the wall. A strange feeling rose within me, but this time, instead of fear, I felt an intense curiosity. I had to know what was going on, I had to find the answer. So I started hitting the wall. The noise continued to echo, gradually fading, but recognizable. Suddenly, the wall started shaking, and I realized something. This wall wasn't just a part of the house. When I tried to separate a panel of the wall, I discovered a small door hidden behind it. A door I've never seen before. I opened it, and before my eyes was a staircase leading down to an underground floor. All feelings of fear returned. I don't know if I have the courage to go down there. But an invisible force, as if a force from the house, forced me to step down. The underground floor was dark, and I could hear my own gasps echoing in the quiet space. The feeling that someone was watching me became stronger and stronger. My steps echoed like knocks in the dead silence. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, I couldn't believe my eyes. In front of me was a large room, filled with strange objects, old paintings, antique objects, and a wooden statue. It's not the statue I received from my colleague. This is another statue, identical, but frighteningly different. It is a statue of a woman, with hollow carved eyes, but the main difference is, this statue has blood. Blood flowed from the eyes and from the mouth, as if it were a living creature bleeding. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through my head. I can't breathe. It feels like something is taking over my mind. I couldn't run, couldn't stop, couldn't do anything but stare at that bloody statue. A voice rang out in my head, this time not from the statue, but from within me. "We have been waiting for you," the voice said, defiant and angry. "We never left. I can't stop." The suffocating feeling in the underground room seemed to be tightening around me. Strange statues all around, with blank eyes, like dead eyes, were looking at me from every angle. I can't escape their gaze. It felt like they were watching me, waiting for something, and I felt like I wasn't part of this world anymore. The wooden statue was covered in blood, with eyes staring at me, as if it were a living, breathing creature waiting to drag me into the darkness. Blood continued to drip from the statue's eyes and mouth, forming a small puddle on the cold stone floor. Each drop of blood was like a sign of the terrifying existence of something inexplicable. "We have been waiting for you," the voice said in my head, this time not a vague whisper, but clear, sharp and authoritative. "We are part of you. Part of this house. You can't leave." The shadow behind the statue, a shadow I had not seen before, now began to move again. I turned around and saw it, a shadowy shape, unclear but threatening. It was as if it were part of the darkness, but it was unavoidable. "It's getting closer, and I can't move." With every step closer, I felt an invisible force pulling me in. The silence around me felt like it was tightening. It feels like there is a powerful vortex forming in this space, twisting everything, and I am a part of it. I began to feel drawn in, as if those words were seeping into my mind. We are a part of you. That voice was not from the statue anymore. It comes from me. Suddenly, I understood that this house was not simply where I lived. It is a part of me, and I am a part of it. A feeling of terror rose within me. How is this possible? I came here to escape it, but now I understand that I cannot escape. The house has seeped into my soul. I cannot escape it, because I am part of it. The truth awakened in me like a shock, making me unable to continue thinking. My eyes blurred, and I felt myself gradually losing consciousness. I staggered and fell to the stone floor, feeling cold through every fiber of my body. When I woke up, I was no longer in the underground room. I was standing in the middle of a dark space, seeing nothing but endless darkness. There was a strange feeling in the air, as if something was stalking me. Not a physical being, but something invisible, threatening and powerful. At that moment, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around, but there was no one. There is only darkness. But the footsteps continued, becoming clearer and clearer, each step like a warning. I didn't dare look back, but I couldn't resist the feeling of wanting to know what was approaching me. The footsteps stopped, and I felt something, a faint light shining in the darkness. A voice rang out, this time from somewhere very close. It's not a voice in my head. It was a real voice, coming from a place I couldn't see clearly. Run, if you can, the voice said, but it wasn't a human voice. It was cold, emotionless, as if it came from a place that did not belong to this world. I can't move. My whole body was paralyzed in fear, unable to do anything but stand and stare into the darkness. I wanted to run, wanted to escape, but every step seemed to be held back by an invisible force. I couldn't breathe, couldn't feel anything but the heaviness of the air around me. Suddenly, a cold wind blew. That breeze brought a strange change in the air. Every breath I took felt like a knife cutting across my throat. I turned around, and I saw a dim light. In that light, I saw a door. A single door, opened in the darkness, like the only way out that I could take. With all my remaining strength, I ran towards the door. With every step I took, the darkness grew thicker, but the light from the door seemed to be pushing me out. I was almost about to touch the door handle, when a strong force pulled me back, as if something had grabbed me and wouldn't let go. The voice echoed in my head again, this time roaring like a curse, "You will not escape it. You are already a part of this house. Even the statue, even the darkness, are a part of you." When I opened my eyes again, there was no longer the silence of the surrounding darkness. The space was now filled with strange noises, the sound of something moving in the darkness, not just the blowing of the wind or the noises of the old house. It was something else, something moving in the darkness, coming closer to me. I was so tired. Tired of running away, tired of not knowing what to do next. The whispers never stopped, were always there, echoing in my head, making it impossible for me to distinguish between what was real and what was an illusion. I feel like I'm in a spiral with no way out, and it seems like every time I try to leave, I'm pulled deeper into it. I stood up, even though my legs felt like they were about to give out. The light from the open door still sparkled ahead, but a strange feeling kept coming over me. I felt someone, something, was watching me from behind. But when I turned around, I saw only darkness. There's no one. There was nothing but darkness, as if this house had no end, but just went on forever. A cold air suddenly blew past, making me shiver. I walked to the door, my hands shaking as I was about to grasp the doorknob. But right before I touched it, I heard a small sound, like a breath, softly echoing behind me. I turned back immediately. This time, I couldn't see anything, but the feeling inside me was stronger than ever. It was a feeling of an invisible presence, like a creature was standing right behind me, just waiting for me to turn my back to grab me. I swallowed hard, trying to calm myself down, but I couldn't. That feeling of fear grew stronger and stronger. "Don't go," said the voice in my head, this time not just a vague whisper, but a clear warning. "The house has swallowed you. You can't escape it." I turned around, and this time, I saw something I couldn't have imagined. A shadowy figure stood in the middle of the room. Its eyes glowed in the darkness, glowing red, staring at me. That shadow was not just an invisible shadow, but had a specific shape, and I knew one thing clearly: it was not a person, but something else. Something not of this world. A feeling of fear curled up inside me, making it impossible to breathe. I wanted to run, but my feet felt like they were glued to the floor, unable to move. Everything around me began to move, spinning like a tornado. The voice rang out again, this time from the same darkness. "Run, if you can." That's when I realized. That shadow isn't what's chasing me. It is the shadow I cannot escape. This house, the statues, and the evil that pervades it, all are a part of me. That shadow is a reflection of myself, something I cannot run away from. Feelings of confusion, fear and despair rose within me. I got myself in here. I couldn't see this before it was too late. But now, I no longer have a choice. The door in front of me opened again. I don't know if it's a real way out or not, but I can't stand here forever. With all my remaining strength, I rushed towards the door, running through the dark room. As soon as I touched the door handle, all around me became quiet. There was no noise, no strange presence, just an empty space. I turned around, but the shadow had disappeared. Nobody. Nothing. I opened the door and stepped into the outside space. I don't know where I am, but at least I don't feel surrounded by that darkness anymore. I no longer felt the whispers in my head, no longer felt the cold gaze of the statue. But I know that, even though I've left the house, the obsession still won't let me go. I can escape the walls of my house, but can I escape the darkness it has planted in my mind? Can I escape the things I've seen, the things I can't explain? I'm not sure anymore. What I went through cannot be easily forgotten. The wooden statue is always in my mind, and the whispers still echo in my head, as if waiting for me to return, waiting for me to collapse again. That night, as I placed the bust in the wooden chest, a strange feeling overwhelmed me. It was as if the statue knew I had locked it up, and it was not pleased. The tension in my body wouldn't let up, even when I walked out of the room and tried to focus on other things. An invisible vibration kept lingering in my head, like someone was watching me from afar, even though I knew that I had closed the chest. Every time I pass by the hallway where the wooden chest is kept, I can't help but glance at it. I felt an inexplicable urge, an uneasiness, thinking about the statue still lying there. It felt like something unfinished, as if there was a connection between me and the statue that I couldn't quite understand. Every night, I try to sleep, but images of the statue keep spinning in my head. Its carved eye sockets, the strange lines of its face, they kept repeating in my mind. It seemed like it was speaking to me, something inaudible, but I felt it. It felt like it was waiting for me, like it wanted me to do something that I couldn't refuse. One night, when I woke up in the middle of the night, I heard a strange sound. A soft hiss, not from the statue, but from the wooden chest. I couldn't tell what it was, but I could hear sounds as if someone was moving in there, as if the statue was trying to escape. I couldn't stand that feeling, but I didn't dare look into the chest either. The next morning, I decided to check again. Surely everything would be fine, but when I opened the lid of the wooden chest, I could hardly believe my eyes. The statue is no longer there. The chest is empty. A cold feeling rose inside me, and I knew something had changed. I couldn't explain it, but I felt, that the statue was more than just an inanimate object. It's moving, it's alive. And it's not in the chest anymore. I started searching again, but nothing. I checked all over the room, under the bed, in the closet, even in hidden corners where I couldn't see, but where was the statue? It's gone. A feeling of panic rose within me, but I didn't dare say a word. Every step I took, every moment I spent searching, I felt something watching me. There is someone, or something in this house, watching my every move. Then I realized. One night, while sitting in the living room, I suddenly realized something strange. A small detail that I had never noticed before. The living room door, last I remember, was tightly closed when I went to bed. But now, it has opened up a bit. It wasn't just because of the wind, it was like someone had opened it. A cold wind blew in from outside, and I felt like there was something out there, waiting for me. I walked closer to the door, and in that moment, I heard a very soft whisper. It was not a human voice, but a strange sound, as if coming from the wooden statue I had left in the chest. "You can't escape," the voice whispered, not in my head, but through space, as if the statue itself was calling to me. My heart sank. I couldn't stand, my mind was spinning. It felt like an invisible force was controlling me, forcing me to turn around and face what I had been trying to run away from. That statue, it's still alive, and now, I can't do anything but face it. I stood in front of the living room door, my hands shaking as I tried to open it. The strange voice I had just heard still echoed in my head, as if something indescribable was surrounding me. The cold feeling, as if an invisible presence was looking at me from behind, made me uneasy. I opened the door and walked out into the hallway. The light from the streetlight streaming in through the window cast long shadows on the wall, but I couldn't escape the feeling that I was being watched. I turned back to look at the room, where the wooden statue had been stored in the chest. But when I looked at it, I couldn't believe my eyes. The chest is open. I don't remember opening it, but now the statue isn't just in the chest, it's in the middle of the living room. The statue's head, from its position on the shelf, appears to have turned the other way. And those eyes, the statue's eyes, they were no longer cold and empty, but shining, glowing as if there was life in them. A chill ran down my spine. I can't understand what's going on. Every time I look at the statue, that feeling of heaviness and anxiety rises within me. But this time, that feeling is not just an ordinary obsession. The statue's eyes stared at me, and I knew it was waiting for me to do something. But I don't know what I should do. This time, I couldn't simply turn around and walk away. I must know. I have to find out the truth. With my heart pounding in my chest, I walked closer to the statue. A feeling of tension rose within me as I looked at each line carved into the wooden face. Those curves, soft yet threatening. I couldn't take my eyes off its eyes. They seemed to be pulling me into a place I couldn't escape. And then I heard a whisper. This time, the whisper was not in my head, but clear and close, as if the statue was speaking to me. "You can't leave. You belong to us." I turned around, my heart pounding like thunder in my ears. I want to run away, want to escape this room, but my body cannot move. Every step I took seemed to be held back by an invisible force, as if this house was holding me back. The space around me seemed to be shrinking, and I couldn't escape the feeling like I was being swallowed by the darkness itself. The statue still stood there, but this time, I could feel movement in the air. I felt its breath, not human, but something else, a cold and threatening breath. I can't continue standing there anymore. I turned around and ran out to the living room, but when I looked back, I saw the statue still standing there. No change, but I know it's looking at me, following me. Those eyes were not human, not wooden, but something alive, something powerful. Fear made me lose control, and I rushed out of the house, not daring to look back again. I ran outside, running through the empty streets, not paying attention to the time or where I was going. But no matter how far I ran, I couldn't escape the feeling that the house, the statue, and that dark shadow were watching me from behind. I went to a deserted cafe to rest, unable to face the house anymore. But as soon as I sat down, the strange feeling came over me again. Like someone was looking at me. I turned around, but there was no one near me. There was only the statue, not real, but in my mind I knew it was still there, looking at me. Its eyes were still staring at me, and I couldn't escape. The heaviness wouldn't let me go, and as I looked around, I realized something terrifying. Every person around me, every person in this cafe, was looking at me. Their eyes are not human. They were looking at me as part of something else. Something is taking over me, taking over my every thought, every action. And I know, I can't escape it. I can't bear it anymore. It feels like everything around me has changed. The people around me, the people I once knew, are no longer who they are. They looked at me with soulless eyes, eyes that were not human. Every time I looked into their eyes, I saw not life, but coldness, something darker than any fear I had ever known. That feeling doesn't just come from the statue or the house anymore. It has spread throughout my life. Those eyes belong not only to the statue, but to everything around me. It was as if the whole world was looking at me, watching me, waiting for me to do something I couldn't understand. Every night, I wake up in confusion, not remembering how I slept, but there's always something strange. Even though I closed the window tightly, even though I locked the door carefully, I still heard the whisper. Those sounds were not wind, not normal noises from the street. They were as if from inside the house, from the walls themselves, from surrounding objects. I can't explain it. I couldn't understand why it happened, but I knew one thing for sure: I couldn't escape this obsession. Even when I tried to move to another room, I still felt that invisible shadow following me, filling the space with darkness. Every time I try to sleep, I feel like a pair of eyes are staring at me, as if they are following my every step, every thought. One night, when I woke up in the middle of the night, I heard a strange noise. The creaking sound, as if someone was walking on the floor, a heavy, unmistakable step. My heart was pounding, my body paralyzed with fear. I tried to move, but my legs no longer belonged to me. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I couldn't do anything but lie there, just able to feel that presence. The sound of footsteps stopped. A cold feeling enveloped the room. I couldn't see anything, just thick darkness, but I knew that shadow was there, close to me, just a few feet away. I felt its breath almost touching my face, but I didn't dare open my eyes. Suddenly, I heard a light breathing sound, as if someone was breathing near me. I can't stop, I can't move. There was just that sound, the steady breathing, and I knew that this thing wasn't human. It was something else, an invisible presence, able to penetrate every space, every thought I had. Then I heard that voice again. It wasn't the voice of someone I knew. It was a powerful and determined voice, echoing from the very walls around me. You can't escape it. You belong to it. And in that moment, I understood that this house, that statue, and that invisible shadow were not just physical things. They are a part of me. I couldn't escape it, because I was part of it. All the phobias, all the fears, all the cold feelings, all of them had merged with me. I can't bear it anymore. This feeling, this watching, it took over me completely. I can't live in this fear anymore. But no matter where I ran, no matter what I did, I couldn't escape that feeling. A part of me still belongs to the house, to the things I can't explain, to the whispers that constantly echo in my head. I no longer knew if I was living in the present or just caught in an endless spiral of nightmares. Those breathing sounds, those soulless eyes, and that black shadow, they will never let me go. I became part of them, and now, I am part of an evil that I cannot escape. Day after day, I cannot escape my own torment. The images of the statue, its eyes, and the repeating whispers in my head tormented me endlessly. On days when I thought I could find some peace, night came and the obsession returned stronger than ever. I felt like a puppet in the hands of an invisible force, pulled along in every thought and every feeling. I know I can't live like this forever. But just when I thought I could make it, I felt that shadow again, the shadow following me from every corner of the house, from objects I couldn't touch. Every night, I feel its presence, even though I have done everything I can to control everything. I even started to put the statue in the box and lock it, but just as I tried to avoid it, I felt an invisible pull pulling me towards it. One evening, I couldn't stand it anymore. I decided I wouldn't just live in this fear anymore. I have to find out the truth. I had to face what I had been avoiding. I walked into the living room, where the small statue sat neatly in a wooden box. My heart pounded loudly in my chest, and I felt that the statue was still waiting for me. Even though I didn't want to open the box, I knew I couldn't continue living in this confusion. I have to face it. Taking a deep breath, I opened the lid of the box. The statue is no longer there. The box is empty. At first, I couldn't understand. The first feeling is dizziness. I can't move. I couldn't think of anything, only overwhelming fear. It felt like someone was standing behind me, as if I couldn't escape that shadow anymore. I turned around, and I saw it. The statue not only moves but also changes. It doesn't just stand on the shelf. It was looking at me from the corner of the room, its eyes empty, and now, I could feel it alive, watching me every moment. Suddenly, a cold breeze blew past me, chilling my spine. Not only did the statue stand there, but it began to make a whisper, soft and steady, as if saying something that I couldn't hear but felt. Those words penetrated me, deep into my mind, like a call that I could not avoid. "Run," the voice said, not in my head anymore, but in space, in the air around me. "You can't escape us." My fear cannot be expressed in words. That feeling was stronger than anything I had ever experienced. I turned around and ran, but as I ran out the door, I realized that the space around me was no longer the same. The walls were no longer straight, but they seemed to shrink, as if the room was suffocating me. My eyes widened, and I felt something engulfing me. I can't get out. I couldn't do anything but feel that shadow filling the space. These inhuman eyes were watching me, and I couldn't leave this place. I fell to the floor, feeling like everything around me was spinning. The wooden statue has now become a living creature, not only in appearance but also in my mind. The whispers kept echoing, "You belong here. You'll never leave." I can't distinguish between reality and illusion anymore. Everything seemed to be blurring, and I felt like I was no longer in a normal world. A world where physical and spiritual things blend together, where fear never stops, but grows stronger. And then, when I was about to collapse, I felt something. Something warm, as if I was being welcomed into a place I couldn't understand, another world. That strange feeling was so strong that I couldn't resist it, I couldn't escape anymore. Every time I touched the statue, my body reacted by going numb, as if I was touching something other than wood. A strange feeling, an indescribable vibration, as if some energy was emanating from it. I felt those vibrations spread throughout my body, making every cell seem to shrink in fear. But I couldn't stop, I just kept looking at the statue, even though every warning in my mind was screaming that I shouldn't. Daylight shines on the wooden surface, making the carvings on the statue seem more vivid than ever. Those carved eyes, especially the statue's eyes, seemed to be watching me. They were no longer the inanimate eyes of an inanimate object, but the eyes of a living being, a being that knew who I was and what I was doing. It felt like an elaborate trap, and I couldn't escape. And then, when the light from the window shined in, I saw it. The statue changes. Not physically, but I can feel the change. Its eyes were clearer now, as if they were moving, looking deep into me, drawing me into its world. A shiver ran down my spine, and I couldn't take my eyes off the statue, even though I knew that if I didn't stop, I wouldn't be myself anymore. In that moment, I heard the whisper again. This time, not from my head, but from the statue itself. "You can't escape it. You belong to me." The voice rang out clearly, not as an outside sound, but as a strange feeling in my mind, like a possessed thought. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I couldn't move. It felt like an invisible force was squeezing me, pulling me closer to the statue. An indescribable feeling, as if I was being pulled into another world, a dark and gloomy world that I couldn't escape from. With each passing second, my fear increased. The room became stuffy, darkness gradually enveloped me, even though there was daylight outside the window. Every feeling in my body indicated that something dangerous was going on. But I can't stop. I couldn't take my eyes off the statue, couldn't stop the strong pull from it. Suddenly, there was a loud noise. There was a slight cracking sound as if something was broken. I turned around in surprise, and I saw a shadow. It was no ordinary darkness, but a vivid, unrecognizable darkness. I couldn't understand it, but I knew it was coming towards me. The statue was still looking at me, and I felt a strange feeling. The carved eyes no longer just looked at me, but it was as if they were trying to penetrate me, through my soul. I no longer have the strength to resist. The sensations in my body surged, but not from fatigue or anxiety, but from inexplicable fear. The statue's eyes seemed to swallow me whole, to pull me into its world, and I couldn't resist. A loud noise rang out again. This time, I couldn't hear anything other than a ringing in my ears. It felt like an invisible hand was squeezing my heart, making it impossible for me to breathe. At that moment, I realized something strange. The carvings on the statue, they are not accidental. Every line, every detail, has a deep meaning that I cannot fully understand. But I know that I am very close to a terrible truth. And a part of me, the darkest part, knew that I couldn't escape. When I looked back, darkness had covered the whole room. I couldn't distinguish between darkness and reality. Everything around me seemed distorted, and I could only feel the cold, the darkness that was swallowing everything. A feeling of fear enveloped me, tightening like a vice. Every time I look at the statue, I don't just see a wooden sculpture, but a living entity, watching me, waiting for me. It is no longer an inanimate decoration, but a part of me, a part of the house, a part of the darkness that is taking over everything. The air in the living room became stuffy, and I felt like every breath I took was a burden. I can't run away, I can't leave. Every step I take seems to be held back by an invisible force. Something is pulling me towards the statue, towards the obsession that I cannot escape. I can't bear it anymore. I started looking at every detail of the statue again. Its eyes were no longer just empty sockets, but eyes that spoke, as if they were looking into my soul. I couldn't shake the feeling that it knew me, that it understood me in ways I couldn't possibly understand. That voice rang in my head again, this time not as a whisper, but as an echoing, ear-splitting sound. You can't escape. You're already part of us. Those words were like a curse, an undeniable confirmation that I was no longer myself. I can't live in this obsession, but every time I think about leaving the house, I feel an invisible force stopping me, as if the house and the statue are holding me back. The walls seemed to compress, the space around me became cramped, suffocating me little by little. The statue still stood there, its eyes never leaving mine. I could feel that gaze, as if it was invading my every thought, sucking every part of my soul. One evening, when I couldn't take it anymore, I decided to break everything. I will face it head-on, with the evil I tried to run away from. I have no other choice. I stood up, no longer afraid, but with a mad determination, a strange conviction that if I didn't do this, I would never get out. I walked to the wooden chest where the statue was locked. I opened the lid, and this time, I didn't see the slightest change. The statue still stands there, but my feeling is different. I could feel something different in the air, an intense, indescribable presence. I picked up the statue, and this time, I didn't feel as cold as before. It's like a part of me, a part of this house. The statue's eyes weren't just looking at me, but seemed to be piercing through me. I felt my body numb, but I couldn't let go. Run, the voice said again, this time from the statue itself. You can't escape it. I wanted to throw the statue away, I wanted to destroy it, but I couldn't. The feeling of control, the pull from it was so strong. I can't leave, I can't escape this spiral. As I stood there, almost exhausted, I realized that home was more than just a place. It is part of me, part of what I have become. The statue, the shadow, the whispers, it's all a part of me. I cannot escape them, and they cannot escape me. These past few days, I can't escape the feeling of being watched. Every time I looked at the statue, it looked back at me, as if waiting for me to do something. That darkness is always around me, as if it is seeping into every corner of the house, and not only in the house but also in myself. Every time I breathed, I could feel its presence, an invisible force gripping me tightly, making me unable to move. I can't avoid it anymore. That night, I no longer had the strength to resist the strange feelings. I couldn't stand the sight of the statue anymore. I know I have to do this, even though I don't want to, even though it makes me tremble, but I can't let myself continue to live in this fear. I decided to face it, no matter what was waiting for me. I entered the living room again, where the wooden chest was still standing on the shelf. But this time, the heavy feeling was no longer just a thought in my head. It exists in the air, dense and inseparable. I opened the chest again, not as scared as before. The statue is still in there, but this time, it is not standing still. The statue's eyes were wide open, as if it was staring at me. I felt a slight pull from it, as if I couldn't resist. This time, I couldn't stop. I took the statue, feeling the coldness of the wood, but when I touched it, an electric current ran through my body, causing me to convulse. I could barely breathe, it felt like I had just touched something inhuman. A small noise rang out. I turned around, and before my eyes was that shadow, the darkness I had always felt but never seen clearly. It stood there, shapeless, but I could feel its presence, its hostility and power. "Run," said the voice in my head, but this time, it wasn't from the statue. Not from the shadow. It comes from everywhere, from within me. Run away, but you can't escape it. I want to run, but I can't. The shadow still stood there, not moving, but I could feel it pulling me towards it, as if I couldn't resist. Every thought in my head became blurred, and I felt like I was about to stop being myself. But then, a sharp pain shot through my head. I can't bear it anymore. I fell to the ground, feeling as if the room around me was suffocating me, as if the space was shrinking little by little. The walls felt like they were pressing me in, and I couldn't breathe. In that moment, I heard another sound, a sound from outside, as if someone was knocking on the door. Not an ordinary knock, but the knock of something waiting for me. I stood up and tried to walk to the door, but with every step I took, the feeling of fear grew stronger. I couldn't fight the feeling like there was someone outside the door, waiting for me. I opened the door, and when I looked out, I couldn't believe my eyes. Nobody. But the atmosphere around me is different. A cold, heavy feeling enveloped me, and I felt like I was standing in another world, a place I couldn't escape from. I turned around, and as I closed the door, I realized that everything around me had changed. The statue, the shadow, the whispers, all became stronger. I can't sleep. It felt like there was something in the darkness waiting for me. Every time I close my eyes, I feel someone standing right next to me, even though I can't see anything. Not a person, but an invisible presence, heavy and threatening. Since I decided to face the statue, everything has gotten worse. The room no longer seemed like a place where I felt safe. Every corner of the house makes me feel tense, as if something is lurking in the dark, waiting to come out. Every step I took felt like a force was pulling me into a place I couldn't escape. One night, when I woke up in the middle of the night, I heard very light, steady footsteps, as if someone was walking from the hallway into my room. I couldn't move, my legs felt heavy, as if frozen. My eyes opened wide, but I didn't dare turn around, didn't dare look into the darkness. The footsteps continued, each step closer. I heard whispering, this time not just a strange sound, but clear words. I couldn't hear the whole thing, but there was one word I couldn't forget: belong. You belong here, the voice said, not in my head, but as if right in my ear. I felt the cold breath on my neck, but didn't dare look back. My heart was pounding. I felt like a shadow was surrounding me, waiting for me to face it. I can't escape it, I can't take a glance and walk away anymore. That shadow, that obsession, was slowly taking over me, little by little. I don't know what to do. I just know that, more and more, those whispers are heard, as if the house is talking to me, as if the statue, the shadow and all of this are not coincidences, but something that is manipulating me, controlling me. But I can't face it again. Can't look at the statue again. I feel like I'm about to lose everything. But a part of me, a very deep part of my mind, had a strange thought: maybe if I just looked at it one more time, I would understand the truth. Late one afternoon, as weak sunlight streamed into the room, I decided to once again face the statue. I pulled the trunk out of the corner of the room, my heart pounding. The statue remained still in the wooden chest, as if it had never changed, but I knew well, that everything had changed. It's not just an item anymore, but part of this obsession. I opened the lid of the chest. When the statue was brought to light, I could clearly see the carvings on the wood. They were not ordinary carvings anymore. The strange lines and details make me feel like someone is looking at me through each detail. The statue's eyes, now, are no longer lifeless eyes. They were the eyes of a living creature, and they looked at me with challenge. That feeling like I was being seen, like I couldn't escape, made it impossible for me to breathe. My eyes widened, and everything around me started to disappear. Only the statue and I remained, and that look. And then, the statue made a sound. Not a whisper, but a ringing sound, as if it was saying something. Run away. But you can't escape us. It felt like I was caught up in a nightmare that couldn't be stopped. I want to run away, want to leave this house, but my body cannot move. I could only stand there, feeling each moment pass, while everything around me seemed to fall apart. The darkness is approaching, as if it is swallowing everything, and I am part of it. I can't escape it, can't leave. The shadow, the statue, the house, all were tying me to a place I couldn't understand, a place I couldn't escape. Everything around me seemed to be crumbling. The room became dim, and I felt like I was sinking into an endless hole. The air grew heavier and heavier, and I couldn't breathe. My eyesight gradually blurred, but I couldn't take my eyes off the statue. Its eyes, not the eyes of an inanimate object, but the eyes of a living creature, full of power, full of challenge. I felt that I was being pulled into another world, a world that I couldn't explain. Every beat of my heart seemed to echo in the quiet space, like a warning I couldn't deny. Every movement I made was restrained, as if someone was controlling me from behind. At that moment, a thought suddenly flashed in my mind: I have become a part of it. This house is not just a place where I live. It has entered my soul. The statue, the shadow, the whispers, it's all more than just haunting. They are a part of me, of a past I have forgotten. They are not coincidences, but part of the truth that I have refused to face. I couldn't move, but I could feel. Feeling that shadow, something invisible, was walking closer to me. A soft sound, like footsteps on a wooden floor, sounded from behind. I turned around, but there was no one. There's nothing but darkness. But I know it's there, looking at me, very close. Suddenly, another feeling welled up inside me. Not fear anymore, but an irresistible urge. I can't leave this house. I can't run away. A part of me already belongs to this place, has merged into that shadow, into that statue. I stood up, no longer afraid. My eyes looked straight at the statue, and I could feel a change within me. I'm no longer the person I used to be. I am part of that force. The shadow was no longer a foreign thing to me. It is a part of me, like the statue, like the house. I am part of it. When I looked at the statue, I no longer felt fear or disgust. Instead, I felt a strange harmony, as if I and it had become one. All the stuffiness, all the tension seemed to disappear. I don't have to deal with the obsession anymore. I am part of it. The voice rang in my head again. This time it wasn't a whisper, but a soft, powerful laugh. We have been waiting for you. You have returned. I turned back to look at the house, at the walls, at the dark corners that I had avoided. Everything is familiar now, it all belongs to me. This house is no longer where I live, but a part of myself. I no longer want to escape, I no longer want to leave. I have found where I belong. Once again, I looked at the statue, and this time, I didn't feel scared. We are one, united as one. The whispers, the strange looks, the shadows, all of them no longer scared me. I have become a part of them, and I know that I can never leave again. Every day, I feel the statue's presence. Even though it was locked away in a box and locked in the closet, I still couldn't escape the feeling that it was always there, just a door away from me. Every time I passed by the hallway where the wooden cabinet hid the statue, I could feel the cold air enveloping me, as if an invisible force was waiting for me, secretly observing me from behind the door. I did all I could to hide it from my view. I try not to think about it, not to let it take over my mind. But on quiet nights, when everything seems to calm down, I hear small noises. A slight creaking sound as if the box was moving or something was shaking inside. At first, I thought it was just a trick of my tired mind, but gradually, doubts began to creep into my mind. Those sounds are not accidental. Every time I hear them, it feels like something inexplicable is scaring me. My hands trembled every time I walked near the closet, not because of the cold, but because of something else, something intangible but clearly present in the air. I felt like I was being monitored, and that monitoring wasn't from a person, but from something invisible, from something beyond my ability to understand. One night, when I couldn't take it anymore, I decided to do something. I can't continue living like this, feeling monitored and haunted every day. I decided to destroy the statue, if doing so would help me get rid of this anxiety. I opened the closet, for the first time in days, to take out the box. Each moment seemed to last for hours, and I felt the statue's presence weighing down on me. It felt cold, as if it was waiting for me to do next. I opened the box, and the statue lay there, motionless as before. But there is one difference. The carved details on the statue seem to be changing, as if they are alive, changing every moment. The hair swirling around the wooden face seemed to move now, and the eyes, those eyes, they looked not just at me but through me, as if they knew what I was thinking, knew what I was feeling. Another wave of terror swept over me. I can't look at it anymore. Every time I touch it, I feel like I'm losing a part of myself. A very important part that I cannot get back. It felt like the evil in the statue was slowly spreading into me, swallowing everything I knew. With trembling hands, I decided not to destroy it. I put the box back in the closet, closed it, and locked the door. But as soon as I stepped out of the room, I felt a strange change in the air. The space around me seemed to become heavier, as if the statue itself was no longer hidden. That feeling, a feeling I can't describe, still covers me. An invisible fear, that I cannot run away from. Soft whispers, blurry images, seem to surround me, from the walls, from the dark corners of the house. I cannot escape it. And I started to wonder, is the statue really locked in that box? I felt like everything was taking over me, from my mind to every cell in my body. Those feelings are not imagination, but an undeniable reality. And I understand that, no matter what I do, I cannot escape this obsession. It is not just an object, but a part of me, of this house, of an evil that I could not recognize earlier. With each passing night, I felt myself losing more and more control. The space around me is no longer the same as before. The walls, the room, and even myself, all seemed engulfed in darkness. I can't escape the feeling of being watched. Not just from the statue, but from the shadow itself, from the invisible things that are stalking me every moment. Long nights, when I try to sleep, I hear footsteps. At first, I thought it was just normal noises of the old house, but every night, the footsteps became clearer. Slowly, cautiously, as if someone was walking around my room. And the strangest thing was, every time I stopped to listen, the footsteps stopped, as if it knew I was listening. This feeling is not of ordinary fear. It was like a presence, an invisible force that I couldn't resist. One night, I stood up, got out of bed, and walked toward the hallway. As I passed the closet, I felt a cold breeze, a feeling like someone was standing right behind me. But when I turned around, there was no one. I started to wonder if I was going crazy. Did I really hear those footsteps, or was it just a figment of my weary mind? But each night, this feeling became more pronounced, and I couldn't deny that something unusual was happening. The obsession from the statue is no longer just a vague feeling of fear. It has become an inseparable part of my life. Every time I looked at the box in the closet, a feeling like someone was watching me from inside, from the statue itself, filled my mind. Those images, the details in the statue, are now more than just an inanimate carving. They are living things, capable of seeing, feeling and manipulating. The statue's eyes are no longer just lifeless wooden eyes. I could feel them, like they were looking right at me, through me. I was no longer able to distinguish between what was real and what was an illusion. Everything seemed blurred, as if the space around me was no longer real. We were living in the same world, but I didn't know I existed in it. I can't bear it anymore. One night, I decided I wouldn't leave that box in the closet again. I took it out, feeling like something was pulling me to do so. I opened the box. This time there was nothing to stop me. The statue is still there, but my feelings have changed. I don't feel fear anymore, just an irresistible urge. I placed the statue on the table, facing me. Its eyes, now, seem to be seeing through every thought in my mind. They are no longer simple carvings. The carved hair, the curves of the wood, it all seemed alive, seemed to move. A strange feeling, as if the statue was reacting to my presence, enveloped me. "Run," the voice said in my head again, this time not a whisper. "It is a calling, full of challenge and fear. You can't escape us. You belong here." This feeling that I can't explain, welled up inside me again. I can't run away. I can't leave this house, I can't escape the statue. Everything has changed. I have become a part of it, a part of this house, of the evil rising in the darkness. The statue is not just an inanimate object. It was an entity, a creature with strange powers, and it took over me. Every night, I can't stop feeling its presence, even when I can't see it. It has become a part of me, a part of my mind, and now I can't escape it. With each passing day, the obsession from the statue and the house seems to tighten more and more. I am no longer myself. Thoughts, emotions, all are governed by something invisible, incomprehensible. Home, once the place where I found safety, is now a trap I can't escape. I can't leave this place, can't live without being haunted by the statue. Even though I tried to hide it, lock it in a box, everything became meaningless. I can still feel its presence. Light footsteps and whispers constantly echoed in my head. I cannot avoid them. Those sounds were like a call, an invitation that I couldn't refuse. Tonight, I can't stop anymore. I can't stand this feeling. Every time I passed the closet, I felt tension in the air, as if something was waiting for me. The statue's eyes still followed me, not the way I saw, but the way I felt. It is living in me, and I am also living in it. Tonight, I decided to face it again. I can't live like this forever. Every moment, Feelings of anxiety and fear engulfed me. I want to get rid of this obsession, but I don't know how to do it. When I opened the box, I didn't feel scared anymore. Instead, I felt a strange calm, as if I had accepted my fate. The statue remains unchanged. But now, I realize that it is not just an inanimate object. It is a living thing, a part of the world that I cannot understand. I placed the statue on the table and looked at it intently. Its eyes still didn't leave me. But instead of feeling scared, I felt a strange connection. I can't explain it, but I know that I can't escape it. We are a part of each other, whether I like it or not. This obsession, this invisible shadow, has all become a part of me. That voice rang in my head again, this time clearer than ever. You are already a part of us, the voice asserted, not a whisper, but a firm affirmation. We will never leave you. This feeling, of capture and control, is not something I can easily escape. The statue's eyes, now, not only looked at me but also pierced through me. I cannot fight it. Every time I look at it, I feel a strange integration, as if the statue and I are becoming one. Every night, I felt more and more drawn into a world from which I could not retreat. The whispers kept coming, not from the statue anymore, but from within me. Those thoughts are no longer mine, but of another force, a force that I cannot refuse. I began to understand that I wasn't the one who decided anymore. I am no longer in control of what happens in my life. Everything, from strange sounds to unexplainable feelings, was part of an invisible force that took over me. I can't run away. I don't know what will happen next, but I feel that something bigger than me is going on. An invisible force is controlling everything, and I am a part of it. I can only accept it, because no matter how much I try to run away, I cannot escape it. When I walked through the house at night, I no longer felt the silence. Every room felt like a trap, and that darkness, the darkness I couldn't escape, had seeped into every corner of my mind. Every step I took in the hallway, I felt like there were thousands of invisible eyes watching me, seeing through every thought in my head. I don't know if I'm still myself anymore. Every night, when I try to sleep, I hear whispering. The statue's eyes, even though I couldn't see them, still followed me, as if they were living in my every dream. That whisper was not human, but an invisible force that was trying to take over me, little by little. The words were vague, full of meaning, at first just small sounds, but now they rang in my head, full of power. I cannot escape it. I couldn't escape the feeling that I had become a part of this house, a part of this haunting. I could feel the statue's presence, even though I couldn't see it. It's there, in my mind, in every breath I take, in every step I take. I'm not myself anymore. I am part of it, and it is part of me. Long nights passed, and I felt myself gradually disappear. My thoughts are no longer mine. They are thoughts invaded by the statue, by this house. This feeling, this appropriation, was like a huge wave rising in my mind, swallowing everything, leaving me in a hazy state, between reality and fantasy. Every time I look at the details on the statue, I feel a change. The carvings, the curves of the hair, the eyes staring back at me, all were alive, as if they were changing by the moment. I can't explain it, but I feel that the statue knows me, knows everything about me. It is a part of me. And I became a part of it. One night, when I couldn't take it anymore, I decided to do the thing I had been avoiding all this time. I will face it. I will destroy it, because I cannot live in this obsession anymore. I took the statue out of the box, feeling the coldness of the wood when I touched it. I feel it is alive in my hand. Not wood, not an inanimate object, but an entity with strange powers. As I stood there, looking into the statue's eyes, I knew I couldn't do it. I cannot destroy it. A part of me, a very deep part of my mind, felt that if I destroyed it, something worse would happen. I cannot escape this evil, cannot break this bond. And then, I realized the most horrifying thing. The statue is more than just an item. It's not just an obsession. It is a part of me. I cannot live without it. It was ingrained into my soul, into my being, and I, whether I wanted it or not, had become a part of it. Every morning when I wake up, I no longer feel peace. The feeling of stillness in the house was gone, replaced by something dark, as if the air around me was squeezing me. The statue remained silent, still motionless, but I couldn't deny that its presence enveloped me. I couldn't escape its gaze, couldn't escape the feeling that it was monitoring me every minute. Everything around me felt distorted, as if the space itself was changing. The corners of the room became sharper, the walls seemed to move towards me, my breathing became heavier. I felt like I was trapped in an unexplainable, uncontrollable world. I can't bear it anymore. The whispers in my head kept ringing. They are not my voices, but those of another force. I started to feel like I wasn't myself anymore. Every action, every thought I have seems to be dominated by that statue and shadow. I decided to leave this house. But every time I step out the door, I can't help but feel an invisible force pulling me back. I can't get out. Every time I walk, I feel that shadow. The shadow has no shape, but I know that it always follows me. The statue does not need to speak, does not need to act. Just its presence, I was completely dominated. One day, when I returned home, I noticed something strange. The closet door, where I had kept the statue, was open. Even though I had locked it tightly, now the closet door was wide open again. I couldn't believe my eyes. The statue didn't just move, it found a way out of the box and back where it belonged. I stood there, my heart pounding in my chest. A cold feeling enveloped me, as if that shadow was filling the entire room. I felt an irresistible urge. The statue was calling to me, not with words, but with its very presence. Run, that voice rang in my head again, but this time, it wasn't a weak whisper. It was a clear call, as if the statue was inviting me to return. You can't escape us. You're part of us. And then I realized the terrible truth. I'm not just the owner of the statue. I became a part of it. Every fear, every sense of loss, it's all part of this obsession. Not just the statue, but the house, the invisible shadow, it all took over me. I cannot escape it, cannot live in this world without its control. This feeling of being swallowed by darkness, has completely taken over me. I can't remember the days before, the days when I was free. Everything has changed, and now I am no longer me. I am part of the darkness, part of the evil that lurks in every corner of this house. When I looked at the statue again, I didn't feel scared. Not because I'm used to it, but because I'm integrated into it. We are no longer two distinct entities. I am part of it, and it is part of me. This feeling that I couldn't explain, that I couldn't understand, completely took over me. From now on, I will no longer be myself. I will never escape this obsession. I can't run away from the noises anymore. They weren't the sound of my footsteps on the wooden floor, nor were they the sound of objects moving. They were something else, something I couldn't explain, but as clear as if there was an invisible presence in the room to me. When I returned to the bedroom, I saw that the bed had moved a little again, a small mark on the wooden floor as if someone had pulled it out. Cold sweat rose in my body. Even though I was sure I had the bed in the right position, now it's changed again. Not a huge change, just a little bit, enough for me to realize that something wasn't right. I want to leave, want to get out of the room, but an invisible force is holding me back, as if this house is pulling me in. The air became more stuffy. This feeling is not ordinary fear. It was a presence, something that surrounded me and clung to me, making it impossible for me to escape. The light knocking sound sounded again. 3 knocks, as if someone were tapping lightly on the wall, came from the living room. This time, I couldn't convince myself that it was just a normal noise. Every time I hear them, my heart beats harder, as if something is waiting for me. I can't stop. My steps trembled as I walked through the hallway. It felt like an invisible hand was placed on my shoulder, as if signaling me to continue. I cannot leave the house. This feeling, the feeling of being watched, is clinging to me. Every time I entered the living room, I felt a change in the air, as if someone was standing in a hidden corner, watching me, preparing to do something. I don't know what awaits me. My every move felt like it was being monitored, as if an invisible eye was watching my every move. This time, I couldn't convince myself anymore. I took the flashlight and walked into the living room, my hands shaking. I know that I cannot continue to live like this, in endless fear. But when I entered the living room, I saw something horrifying. The living room door was not closed tightly like I had done, but was slightly open. A small change, but enough to make me feel the presence of something invisible. The light from the flashlight shined into the room, and I saw small cracks in the wooden floor, scratches that I was sure didn't leave behind. It felt like an invisible hand was passing through every detail in the room, subtly changing everything, making everything confusing and surreal. I felt cold in the air, as if someone was breathing right next to me, even though I couldn't see them. The rustling sound, gentle but clear, rang out again. I don't know if I'm hearing anything or if it's just a sound in my head. But a cold feeling ran down my spine, and I knew something was really going on. I walked in the dark, unable to take my eyes off the cracks in the floor. My hands trembled as I held the flashlight, feeling like I was searching for something I couldn't see. Suddenly, I heard a loud noise. A thunk sounded from behind me, as if something had fallen to the ground. I turned around quickly, my heart racing, but there was nothing there. There was only empty space, with cracks in the wooden floor, and cold air. I can't continue like this. I felt like I was standing on the edge, where reality and paranoia mixed together. I don't know if I'm living in a nightmare or not, but this feeling, this invisible threat surrounding me, has become too strong for me to deny. And then, I realized the most terrible thing: I was no longer in control. The house, the statue, the shadow, all have invisible power to control me. All my efforts to break this obsession have been futile. With each passing night, I felt myself becoming weaker and weaker. The obsession doesn't just come from the statue or the strange sounds in the house, but from my own mind. Every time I tried to ignore it, tried to live a normal life, the anxiety emerged stronger. I began to doubt myself, doubt what I saw and heard. The whispers in my head, the shadows flitting across my vision, all became blurry and threatening. One night, I couldn't stand it anymore. I decided to face my fears head-on. I will go into the bedroom, into the exact place where it all began, to see if I can resolve this obsession. I gasped, feeling like I was entering an unwinnable war, but I couldn't live forever like this. When I entered the bedroom, the atmosphere changed. Everything seemed to stop, as if the room was holding its breath, waiting for something. I felt a terrible weight on my shoulders, as if something was pressing down on me. With every step I took, the ground seemed to vibrate under my feet, and it felt like it was pulling me into a bottomless abyss. I stood there, in the middle of the silent room, and I saw the bed. This time, it didn't move like before. But there's a strange thing. The cracks in the floor, where the bed had moved, were now more obvious. Those scratches were not just the marks of an item being dragged away, but more like the marks of something alive, something inexplicable. That feeling, the feeling of being watched, enveloped me. Even though there was no one in the room, I felt a presence, something looking at me, watching my every move. I couldn't stop, couldn't leave the room, as if an invisible force was pulling me closer, closer to a shadow I couldn't see, but I knew clearly that it was there. Suddenly, a noise rang out. Creaking noise from behind me. A cold feeling ran down my spine, and I turned around, but there was nothing there. There is no one, only a shadow. The shadow that I know, the shadow that is slowly swallowing me. The whispers rang out again, clearer than ever. We are waiting for you. A feeling of suffocation rose within me. I can't stop, can't fight this feeling. I'm not myself anymore. I have merged with this evil, with this darkness. The house, the statue, they all became a part of me, and I couldn't escape them. I am part of them. It feels like I'm sinking into a deep mud puddle, getting heavier and heavier each time. I looked at the statue on the table nearby, and it looked back at me. Its eyes are no longer a small detail of wood. They came to life, looking right through me. I cannot continue. I couldn't face it anymore, but I couldn't leave either. The statue, the house, the shadow, they all pulled me back, held me tight, wouldn't let me go. I can't get out. And then, in a moment, I realized the most terrible thing. I'm not just obsessed. I have become part of this evil. I am part of the statue, part of this house. Every thought and every action of mine is influenced by them. My sanity was gone. I was no longer myself. I am part of this world, where darkness never stops, where everything is manipulated by an invisible force. The last feeling I felt was silence. Quiet as death. One morning, I woke up feeling extremely tired. My mind was still hazy, and the atmosphere in the room was still as heavy as last night. I looked around, but everything was as usual. The bed is still there, where it always lies. However, I can't escape the feeling that something has changed. A small difference, which I can't quite put my finger on. Can only feel it. I tried to get myself back to normal, tried to go to work and do everyday things. But everything seemed strange, as if my every action was controlled by an invisible force. Every time I look in the bathroom mirror, my reflection is not my own image anymore. I can't articulate that feeling, but I know that I have changed. I can't recognize myself anymore. Every night, I can't sleep. A feeling of dread engulfed me, and I couldn't get it out of my head. I still hear the whispers. Whispers whose origin I couldn't discern, but they constantly surrounded me. Those whispers weren't just in my head. They came from everywhere, from every corner of this house, as if this house were a living organism, with the power to manipulate me. One night, when I could no longer pretend that everything was okay, I decided to turn around and face the statue. I put it in the box, put it away, but its haunting never left me. It's time for me to face it, even though I know that when I do, I won't be able to go back to the way it was. I opened the box. When I saw the statue, I felt a strange coldness run down my spine. The statue's eyes were still looking at me, and this time, they weren't just looking at me but as if they were piercing through me. I felt like a puppet, controlled by a power I couldn't understand. The statue is no longer an inanimate object. It is not a decorative item. It is a part of me. An inseparable part. I feel its life in every detail, every carving on the wood. The curves, the delicate images in the hair, the eyes, all have a strange power. I can't stop. I can't let it go. At that moment, I realized that I was not the only one being influenced. I was part of something bigger, a force I couldn't resist. My thoughts, my actions, are all controlled by this statue and this house. Once again, I heard whispering. "You can't escape us," the voice said in my head, this time not gently but with a powerful statement. "You already belong to us." Haunting is no longer just a part of a house or a statue. It has penetrated into me, into every thought, every feeling. I am no longer myself. I am part of this evil, part of a world from which I cannot escape. I looked into the box, where the statue still lay. A strange feeling came over me again. A part of me, a very deep part of me, realized that I would never escape it. I was a part of it, and it will never let me go. The sleepless nights seem to last forever. I can't escape the feeling of this house, it feels like it's swallowing me up every day. Every time I try to do work, or when I talk to colleagues, I can't help but feel the tension in the air, an invisible presence watching me. The statue is no longer an inanimate object. It has become a part of me, and I can't understand why. Every time I look at it, it feels like it's looking back at me, through me. I began to realize that the noises I was hearing were no coincidence. Every whisper, every movement in the house is the reaction of the house and the statue to me. I started avoiding my bedroom. Even though I knew that nothing had changed, I couldn't resist the heavy feeling, the strange enclosure of that room. But then, one night, I couldn't keep avoiding it anymore. The anxiety has reached an unbearable level. I decided to face the room, face everything I had tried to avoid. I opened the bedroom door, and immediately, the atmosphere was different. It was like a heavy presence in the space, as if this room had its own soul, an invisible force living in it. The scratches on the wooden floor that I had seen were now more obvious, as if something had pulled the bed away from the wall, and now it was waiting for me to enter. I can't leave. This feeling, this siege, was too strong. Every step I took into the room, I felt a strange suction. Every space becomes blurry. The walls seemed to be moving closer to me, as if the room was trying to swallow me whole. I walked closer to the bed. When I looked at it, a strange feeling arose again. I could feel gentle movement, as if the bed was slowly shifting under invisible influence. That feeling, that invisible but clear presence, as if the house was trying to communicate with me. Suddenly, a noise rang out. A distinct click came from underneath the bed. I looked down, and suddenly, a blast of cold air blew past me, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. This feeling, like someone was under the bed, like there was something waiting for me. But I can't move. I was frozen, unable to do anything but stare into the darkness under the bed, waiting for something I couldn't imagine. But then, I heard another sound, not from under the bed, but from behind me, as if someone was standing right behind me, holding their breath. I turned around, my heart pounding like thunder, and I saw a faint shadow, an indistinct shape, standing at the bedroom door. I couldn't see it clearly, but I knew it was looking at me, staring at me. The whispers echoed in my head again, stronger than ever. "We've been waiting for you. You can't leave. You can't escape us." Those words are not imagination. They are a part of the truth that I cannot avoid. I can't understand. I can't explain why things are like this, but I feel it very clearly. That shadow, the invisible shadow, was slowly swallowing me. My steps trembled, I turned around and walked out of the bedroom. But with every step I take, I feel that heaviness following me, surrounding me. That shadow is still there, watching me from everywhere, and I can't escape it. It seems like this house has become a part of me, and I am a part of it. I cannot escape this control. Every night, I could only sit there, quietly looking at the scratches on the wooden floor, the cracks in the wall, the marks that I couldn't explain. The shadows were slowly swallowing me, and there was nothing I could do but wait. Wait until it will all end. Even though I tried to find a reasonable solution, my life continued to be plagued by inexplicable fear. The presence in this house has become a part of me, like an inescapable shadow. Long nights, when I tried to find peace in my sleep, strange noises and invisible movements continued to appear. I installed motion sensor lighting, hoping that if something really was moving out in the yard, I would at least have evidence to prove that I wasn't the only one feeling scared. But every night, when the light came on in the yard, I saw nothing but strange shadows. One time, the light turned on and illuminated the entire backyard area, but there was nothing but the trees and the darkness of the night. I heard a small rustling sound again, as if something was moving in the dark, but when I ran outside, there was nothing. Only the cold air and the feeling of suffocation were taking over me. Every time the sensor light detected movement, I no longer felt the comfort of being able to verify my paranoia. Instead, anxiety increased. As the light turned on and off a few times during the night, I could only feel cold sweat on my back, the feeling that someone was watching me, even though I couldn't see them. The night was long and quiet, and that fear only grew heavier. I began to feel that I was being watched not only in the yard, but in my own home. Tonight, as I was having dinner in the small dining area, I heard footsteps. It was the sound of light, steady footsteps, as if someone was walking in the hallway. I stopped, my heart pounding, trying to listen, but when I turned around, there was no one. There was only silence, surrounding me like a cold blanket. But this silence did not ease my fear. It just makes everything even scarier. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something waiting for me, something invisible but very powerful. I couldn't see it, but I could feel its presence. It follows me all the time, following my every step in this house. I can't help but feel like I'm imprisoned in my own home. Every time I look at the walls, I feel like there are eyes looking at me from inside. Even though I can't see them, I know they are there. I could feel the surveillance, the tension in the air, as if an invisible force was pulling me in, controlling me. I tried everything to understand, to explain, but all efforts were in vain. Whether I called friends, family, or even tried to seek professional help, I couldn't shake the feeling that they would just think I was crazy. Who would believe strange stories about unexplained noises, unseen shadows, and the feeling of being constantly watched in one's own home? I tried sleeping in the living room, away from the bedroom. But every night, that feeling still doesn't go away. I heard strange footsteps and saw shadows hovering in the dark corners of the room. I couldn't shake the feeling that everything in this house was alive and watching me, as if it were controlled by some incomprehensible force. I stared at the window in the living room, where I once felt safe. But now, there is nothing but darkness and cold. I can't explain it, but I feel like there's something outside waiting for me. It is not human. It is something that cannot be seen, cannot be touched, but is very present. And then I realized the terrible truth. I can't live in this house anymore. I can't stay here another night. The shadows, the whispers, the feeling of being constantly watched, it all consumed me. I can't go on like this, can't live in this fear. I had to leave, even though I didn't know where I was going. Every night, I couldn't help but feel something watching me, a presence that was invisible, but as clear as if it were standing right behind me. Even though I couldn't see anything but darkness, I could feel movement in the air, a slight shift in space, a change in temperature, a breath almost imperceptible but enough to make me shiver. I was starting to doubt my own sanity. Is everything I'm experiencing delusional due to prolonged stress and fatigue? Or is there really something unexplainable lurking in my house, on this estate? I can't distinguish between reality and illusion anymore. Every time I try to reason things out with reason, I feel like I'm falling into a spiral of fear that I can't escape from. Motion sensor lighting is still part of my efforts to face those fears. I thought that if I could see what was actually moving in my yard, at least I would have evidence, a logical reason to explain these strange things. But every time I try, the result is disappointment. Every time the light turned on, I only saw darkness, nothing but the dim shadows of trees and objects in the yard. Last night, I stood in the yard longer than usual. The sensor light illuminated the area, and I just stood there, trying to catch any movement. Night fell, and as darkness began to cover the space, I felt a change in the air. The atmosphere became heavy, as if someone was standing right next to me, but when I turned around, there was nothing. Only my shadow reflected on the ground. I can't leave there. A part of me, even though I felt extremely scared, urged me to walk towards that shadow. One step, then two, I walked slowly toward where I felt something moving, felt the presence of a tall shape in the darkness. With every step I took, my heart beat faster, but I couldn't stop. When I was a few feet away from the shadow, the light suddenly went out, enveloping me in absolute darkness. The suffocation in the air made me unable to move, unable to think of anything but the panic rising within me. I tried to turn the flashlight back on, but the beam refused to penetrate the thick darkness, and I felt like I was being sucked into a nightmare with no way out. Then I heard it, a whisper, faint as a breath. It wasn't the sound of a human being, but it was clear that something was there, watching me. The shadow was no longer just a shadowy shape. I could feel its presence, as if it were right next to me, hovering around. My eyes still can't tear themselves away from that darkness. I saw an outline, something tall, bending as if watching me. But then, in an instant, that shadow disappeared. No trace, no sound. There was only darkness and me left, standing quietly, my heart pounding, sweat pouring down my body. I cannot explain what happened. Everything remains only silence and a feeling of suffocation. I can't continue living like this. It is impossible to continue facing this invisible presence. But I can't leave this place either. Every time I leave the house, I feel like that shadow is following me. It has become a part of me, of this house. I can't find a way out. I don't know what's happening to me anymore. Everything I once understood was now blurred, as if I was living in a never-ending nightmare. But I know one thing for sure. That shadow, that presence, does not only exist in the space of this house. It had entered my mind, and I couldn't get out. Last night, that feeling came back again. The shadow, the invisible presence, was always there, right in sight, but I couldn't see it. I was no longer sure whether it was the appearance of a supernatural force or just my own paranoia. But one thing is certain, it never left me. It was still there, silently observing, waiting, as if playing with me. I can feel it, even when I try not to think about it. My backyard, a place I once felt comfortable, has now become a place I avoid. Every night, when I look out the window, I still see strange figures, blurry movements in the darkness. Sometimes it's a tall shadow, sometimes it's a quick movement that I can't explain. It's always fleeting, but enough to make me feel unsafe, unable to relax in my own space. I started to doubt myself. Am I too stressed, too tired, to the point where everything becomes distorted? But even though I convinced myself that everything was just an illusion, I still couldn't shake that feeling, the feeling that I wasn't alone, that there was someone, or something, always there, waiting for me. And then I remembered that picture. The day I bought it, I had no idea that I was bringing home something that could do strange things. The painting depicts a small house by the lake, a quiet but mysterious scene. The dim light from the only window in the house reflected on the water, and behind it, there was only darkness, nothing but silence. I remember the feeling when I looked at the painting for the first time, as if there was something drawing me to it, as if that house really existed somewhere out in this world. The artist said that he drew this picture from his recurring dreams, and those dreams kept changing little by little. Maybe that's what made me feel caught up in something invisible, a force I couldn't resist. He said he hoped this picture would give me some insight, but now I was beginning to doubt whether it was a warning. After bringing the painting home, I hung it in the living room. During the day, natural light shines in, making the scene in the painting look more vivid than ever. But every night, when the light in the room turned on, I felt its gentle light like moonlight, creating a strange atmosphere. On the second night after I hung the painting, I began to dream of the house in the painting. In my dream, the house looked exactly like the picture, but it wasn't just a little house by the lake anymore. It became vivid, gloomy, and I felt the presence of something waiting for me in the darkness. That feeling was so real, it haunted me all night. I woke up in a panic, sweating, my heart pounding. But when I tried to go back to sleep, the nightmare pulled me back in, and every time, I found myself standing at the window of that house, looking out at the lake, and the light from the only window remained bright, dim and cold. The third time, dreams about the house became clearer than ever. I could see details, from the shadows of the trees to the cold water reflecting the moonlight. And then I heard a whisper. Unidentifiable voices, sounds as soft as wind. Those sounds, however faint, could fill the space in my dreams, making me feel like I could never escape them. Those voices seemed to be calling me, but I couldn't understand. I can't explain this anymore. How could a painting haunt me like that? How could these dreams have infiltrated my life? Every time I look at the picture, I feel like that house is looking at me, waiting for me to come back. And that night, I decided I wouldn't look at the painting anymore. I wouldn't let this paranoia continue to control me. But no matter how hard I try, the shadow of that house, of those dreams, always follows me. The feeling of that presence grew stronger and stronger. The painting has become an undeniable threat. My dreams of the house in the painting had become a nightmare, not a reflection of a harmless landscape but a dark and macabre world from which I could not escape. Those images, the weak light from the house's windows, the dark trees, the sounds in the dark, all seemed to be pulling me into a space that I couldn't understand. Every time I look at the painting, I feel like an invisible force is pushing me closer to it. I can't explain why, but I know that the painting is more than just a drawing. It has become a part of me, of this house, of a fear that cannot be shaken off. What I felt from it was not the beauty of art but a lurking dark energy. When my friend came to visit, I could feel a slight change in the painting, a change that I couldn't perceive but made me feel more scared than ever. The image of the house in the painting now seems larger, clearer and closer. Every time I look at it, I feel a suffocating fear rising. It's as if the house in the painting is gradually stepping out of the canvas and into my living space. That night, I tried to sleep, but the silence in the house became heavy. My cat, who has always been comfortable on the couch, now doesn't dare enter the living room anymore. It stood in the hallway, its eyes staring at the painting, its furry eyes wide open as if waiting for something to happen. I tried to comfort it, but it wouldn't budge. A deep growl came from it, as if something inexplicable was scaring it. I felt a cold rising from my body, and my skin got goosebumps when I saw the cat's reaction. Finally, I gave up, went to bed worried, and as soon as I fell asleep, the nightmare came again. This time, I didn't just look at the house in the picture from afar. I was standing in front of the house, my heart beating strongly in my chest, cold sweat running down my body. I felt a foul smell rising from the porch, as if something rotten was waiting for me there. The darkness in the dream was thick, and the sound of footsteps on creaking wooden floors echoed from inside the house. I don't dare open the door. I just stood there, as if frozen in fear, unable to move. When I woke up, I felt a smell of damp earth and rotting wood in my bedroom. Everything seemed different, as if the atmosphere in the room had changed. My cat, still unsettled, hissed as he passed the living room door, refusing to enter that room. I noticed that the picture was no longer the same as before. Everything in it became sharper, more alive, as if the painting was breathing and following me. The details in the painting, such as the tree and the moon reflecting on the water, become so clear that they cannot be explained. The feeling of being watched became stronger. Every time I passed the living room, especially near the painting, I felt a heaviness in the air, as if something was staring at me. Every step in the house makes me feel scared, and I can't escape this feeling. The shadow that I couldn't see but always felt, was still there, watching me all the time. One night, when I was almost asleep, I was awakened by a strange noise. A low, weak moan echoed through the walls. I wasn't sure if I actually heard it, but my heart pounded as if I had heard something very real. The cat hissed again in the darkness, refusing to budge from his bedroom door. I knew it sensed something I couldn't understand. Every night, I feel like I can barely breathe in this house. The shadows are surrounding me, and I don't know how to escape them. With each passing day, I felt myself being drawn more and more into a spiral of fear. The painting, which I had thought was just a harmless decoration, had now become an unavoidable threat. Every time I look at it, I feel like there is something that is not here, that does not belong to this world, staring at me. The house in the painting is more than just an image, it seems to be a door, an entrance to another world, a haunted world. I can't remember exactly when I started feeling this way, but I'm sure this can't just be my imagination. All the strange phenomena, from changes in the painting's lighting to small inexplicable noises, seemed like just pieces of a big picture that I couldn't understand. Each time I looked at the painting, the details changed, and I began to wonder if I was being drawn into a world I couldn't escape. That night, I stood and looked at the painting one more time, this time determined not to let fear control me anymore. But as soon as the living room light turned on, I noticed a clear difference. The house in the painting was not only larger, but also took center stage in the scene, as if it was stepping out of the painting and into my space. The only window in the house now emitted cold light, as if inviting me to enter. The feeling of being observed is stronger than ever. I could have sworn I heard a soft whisper, passing by my ear. I turned around, looking around the room, but there was nothing but stillness, as if darkness were covering everything. However, that presence was still there, right behind me, like a ghost waiting. My heart pounded in my chest, cold sweat rose all over my body. I can't bear it anymore. I hastily reached out to touch the light switch, but when the light turned on, everything returned to normal. The scene in the painting seems unchanged, but my feeling is different. The feeling that there is a door opening from within the painting, an entrance to another world, still lingers in the air. I stood there, unable to move, and for that brief moment, I felt as if something dark, was waiting for me, from the other side of the window in the painting. Every time I think I understand what's going on, paranoia overwhelms me again, reminding me that nothing in this house will ever be the same again. I can't sleep. Nightmares continue to haunt me every night. I felt like I couldn't get out anymore. The painting, the house in it, is more than just a work of art. It was a force, an inexplicable entity, surrounding me. And every night, I feel closer and closer to that presence, as if the house in the painting is pulling me into it. My cat became more and more frightened. He didn't dare enter the living room anymore, always trying to stay away from the painting. It looked at me with worried eyes, as if it knew something I couldn't understand. I can't say it, but I know that this painting, the shadow in it, has changed me. It has changed this house, and it will never leave me. I decided to face my fear. I cannot let myself be haunted forever by the shadow of the painting, a shadow that I cannot understand, cannot explain. This time, I was determined to chase it away. I took the painting down from the wall. A feeling of dizziness came over me as soon as I touched it, but this time I didn't let fear control me. I don't allow myself to step back. Even though I was sweating profusely and my body was shaking, I couldn't turn back. I brought the painting out into the middle of the living room, where I could see it clearly, illuminated by a flashlight. My cat, who had barely been able to get close to me, stood at a distance and hissed, refusing to enter the room anymore. The deep hiss from deep in its throat made me feel the clear tension in the air. Every step I take, every touch of the painting, that feeling gets stronger. It was as if something invisible was controlling it, dominating my emotions, and I began to wonder if I really understood the nature of what was happening. Still, I didn't give up. I decided to face it, to know exactly what was going on in this house. I turned the painting over, touching every detail of it, the strokes, the ridges in the paint. Under my fingertips, I felt a gentle vibration, as if an invisible force was passing through it. I couldn't shake that feeling, a low hum, as if it were coming from the painting itself, from the images on that canvas itself. I remembered the artist's words. He has said that his dreams are never the same, they are always changing, as if they can never be fully grasped. Could it be that he opened a door, something that he did not foresee when he put this image on canvas? That feeling became even stronger when I faced it, and I began to feel as if the painting was more than just a work of art. It is a door, a passage into another world, from which I cannot retreat. With a strong resolve, I placed the painting on the floor, determined not to let fear take hold of me any longer. The room was suffocatingly silent, only the sound of my heart pounding in my chest. As I stood there, a sudden creak came from the floor. My heart felt like it wanted to jump out of my chest. I turned around, flashlight clutched in my hand, but when I looked around, there was nothing. There was just thick air, like something had just moved in the room, but I couldn't see it. Part of me wanted to run away, but a strange determination held me back. This is my space. I refuse to let it become a space of darkness or the inexplicable. Even though my heart was beating wildly, I couldn't give up. I put the painting back in its place, this time determined to keep it in its place. I looked at the picture without looking away. Tears began to flow. My hands were shaking, cold sweat drenched the back of my neck. But I can't let fear take over. I have to face it. At that moment, I noticed the light in the cabin window, which seemed to be a little brighter. In that moment, I felt a terrible certainty that if I gave in to fear, if I kept hiding, this thing would only get stronger. And then, in that moment, a strange feeling spread in the air. The room seemed to become lighter, the air seemed to breathe easier. The feeling of being watched, surrounded by darkness, is no longer as strong as before. I felt like my breathing was no longer choked, my heart rate slowed down. My cat finally dared to come closer, although he kept his distance. Its steps were careful as it moved through the living room door, its eyes still staring at the painting. But it seems, something has changed. I no longer feel that fear haunting me. I could breathe more calmly, and although the feelings were still there, I found some peace throughout the night. Since then, I no longer have nightmares about the lake house. The painting no longer makes strange changes, at least not as obvious as before. However, there were still moments when I felt an inexplicable pressure in the house, as if something was still waiting, hidden in the darkness. My cat remains alert, and sometimes, when I look at the picture for too long, I see small details change, but at least, I no longer feel bound by it. Even so, part of me knows that maybe I'm not really out of it yet. My relationship with the painting may have changed, but can I really control it? Time passed, but I could not find the answers to the questions that still haunted me every day. The silence that filled the house seemed to be compressing the air, making my every breath difficult, as if an invisible force was suffocating me. Strange things began to appear again, and every day I felt more clearly that the shadow of the painting did not exist only in that room but had penetrated all the dark corners of the house. Sometimes I feel as if there is something lurking in the darkness, something waiting for me, watching my every step. Strange noises kept coming from the attic, as if someone was moving in there, but every time I checked, there was only silence in response. I couldn't shake that feeling. There was something strange about this house, as if it wasn't just an ordinary house. It has a life, an invisible presence that I cannot see but feel very clearly. The nail that secures the attic door from the inside remains an unanswered question. Why does it have to be so closed? What made the homeowner do that? These questions keep lingering in my head, making it impossible for me to feel at peace. But every time I tried to ask the landlord about it, he was evasive, always advising me not to open the door, not to be curious. Maybe he knows something I shouldn't know. Every time I heard those strange sounds, I wondered if he had tried to warn me before, but I didn't listen. Every night, when night falls, I feel the air become thick, as if something invisible is waiting for me to enter. I tried to sleep, but the nightmares about the house in the picture came back, stronger than ever. This time, I wasn't just standing in front of the house in my dream, I actually entered it, walked through the deserted house, heard strange noises coming from inside. And every time I tried to get closer, a cold feeling rose inside me, a feeling like something was watching me. But I can't stop. I want to understand what's going on. I want to face what's haunting me. Every time I feel like I'm close to an answer, something stops me, pulling me back into confusion. And the painting that I still can't take my eyes off of, is always there, like a door opening to another world, where I can't escape. The next day, I couldn't stop thinking about that house, about the locked attic and the strange sounds coming from there. I knew I had to do something about this problem. I can't keep living in this confusion. I decided to once again face the house in my dreams, to understand what was waiting for me there. That night, I prepared myself to face it all. I brought a flashlight, a stick, and a determined mind. I walked to the attic, a feeling of tension and fear rising within me. Every step I took, I felt something watching me, as if I wasn't the only one here. The attic door was still there, nailed shut from the inside. With a deep breath, I walked up the stairs leading to the attic door. A feeling of fear filled my body, but I couldn't turn back. I knew that I had to do this, to reveal the secret that this house was hiding. Either way, I can't live in fear forever. When I touched the door, I felt a resistance. But then, suddenly, the door opened, and I stepped inside. Every night, the strange feelings became stronger. The space around me always seemed to be covered by something invisible, but extremely present. I began to become more aware of the noises in the house, the gentle creaks of floorboards, the vague hissing sounds from somewhere in the quiet space. Especially on blackout nights, when darkness invades the space, I no longer feel comfortable, but instead feel stuffy and afraid. The house is like a living organism, always breathing and watching my every step. That night, after finishing dinner, I searched the kitchen drawer for a candle, only to find myself faced again with the eerie silence as the light bulb went out. The air in the house became thick, and I felt every breath become difficult. I thought it was all due to fatigue, but the strange feeling of someone's presence in the house made it impossible for me to remain indifferent. The faint hum of the refrigerator died away in the stillness. That's when I noticed a faint light from somewhere in the hallway. I stood up, my heart beating so loudly I could almost hear it beating. That light was like a candle, weak, fading as if it was going out. And with that light comes the smell of burning wax, the characteristic smell of melting candles. I didn't dare move towards that light right away. I gripped the table tightly, trying to keep my balance, but with every step I took, I felt a strange vibration, like someone was holding a candle, moving it closer, closer to me. It wasn't the gentleness of a fire, but a threat, as if the darkness was sucking me in, making it impossible for me to escape. I walked into the hallway, my hands were sweaty, my mouth was dry and I couldn't swallow. I couldn't see anything clearly, but that presence, that shadow that couldn't be touched, kept chasing me. As I neared the end of the hallway, the faint light faded away, leaving me in complete darkness. My legs seemed to have no strength left, but a strange feeling pulled me forward. I couldn't help but go there. I've felt this before, stood here and faced it, but this time I feel something different. Something new is coming. I looked at the house again, the house in the picture, into which I had seen my darkness reflected, into which it had drawn me into a world I could not understand. Is this reality, or am I just living in a never-ending nightmare? The light from the lamp flickered and then went out completely, making it impossible for me to distinguish between what was real and what was imagined. But I feel like maybe I can't live in this fear forever. A vague determination inside me that I must know, must understand what is waiting for me ahead, in this house, in the darkness. Tension rose to a high level as I continued to live in that house, where the peace I thought I could find was swallowed up by darkness and strange phenomena. The attic, where I couldn't stop thinking about the mysterious signs, continued to haunt me. I couldn't deny the feeling that something had been released, or perhaps had been held there for a long time, waiting for a chance to reappear. That day, after talking with my landlord, I decided that I had to face the truth. A feeling of fear and curiosity pulled me closer to the attic door, where I heard strange sounds. The door was still tightly closed, the nails from the inside were still intact. But I couldn't help but open it. I can't let doubts and fears haunt me forever. It felt like a shock when I opened that door, the flashlight light illuminating the space inside. The cold and gloomy atmosphere enveloped the room, every step felt like a journey into another dimension. And then, as I shined the flashlight on the floor, strange symbols appeared before my eyes, marks carved into the wood, as if there was some hidden message. Strange drawings, like intersecting triangles, spirals, crosses, all seemed to remind me of something I had never understood. Waves of nausea and anxiety overwhelmed me. I felt as if an invisible force was observing me, and if I didn't leave immediately, I would never escape it. I turned around and quickly closed the door, not daring to stop for even a second. I ran out of the house, without a moment's hesitation, leaving everything that was gnawing at my mind behind. A few weeks later, I moved into a new living space where I tried to escape the nightmares of the past. But no matter how hard I tried, the memories of that house and those strange signs wouldn't leave me. Every time I'm alone, I feel as if something is watching me from the darkness. It feels like a reminder that I'm never truly alone. One day, I went to an antique store, hoping to find a new decoration for my office. I accidentally bought a painting, a beautiful piece of art, and I thought it would help me relax. But when I looked at the picture, I felt a strange obsession. The salesman's eyes when he looked at me were strange, his eyes were full of obsession, as if he knew something that I couldn't understand. When I returned home, I hung the painting on the wall of my office, where I spend most of my time. But after that, every time I looked at it, I felt a strange tension, as if something in the painting was watching me, the same feeling I had felt when facing the house before. I couldn't stop, every time I looked at it it made my fear more intense. The painting is not just a decoration. It was a portal, a window into another world, a dark world from which I could not escape. And then, I began to realize that maybe it was me, not the painting or the house from before, that was haunted. Maybe I let fear take over, making me part of a story I can't escape. When I tried to hide the painting in the closet, I thought I would finally be able to free myself from that obsession. But the strange thing is, even when the painting was no longer in my sight, the feeling of being watched did not leave me. There was a presence in this house that I couldn't explain, a heavy silence that followed my every step, making me feel like I was always under surveillance. One night, when I woke up at 3 a.m., a suffocating feeling took over me. I couldn't breathe normally, my heart was beating so hard I felt like it was about to burst out of my chest. I suddenly realized that the space around me was becoming heavier, as if something invisible was pressing on me. I hastily turned on the hallway light switch, but when the light shined out, I saw it, the painting, still hanging in the same position, in my room. The look of the man in the painting seemed to pierce through me, making my heart choke. I couldn't stop, I couldn't look away from it, even though everything in me was screaming at me to look away. I put my hand on my chest and felt my heart beating wildly. I couldn't explain what was happening, but I knew I couldn't take it anymore. I tried moving the painting away, putting it in another corner of the room, even putting it in the downstairs closet, but the feeling of fear still wouldn't go away. Every time I look at the painting, no matter where it is placed, that man's eyes follow me. The following days, I felt an inexplicable heaviness. I couldn't work, couldn't concentrate on anything. I was starting to feel as if something in this house was changing, chipping away at my mind little by little. Every night, I woke up in a cold sweat, and every morning, I couldn't shake the feeling like someone was watching me. And then, one morning, when I woke up and entered my office, I discovered that the door was open, even though I remembered I had locked it tightly before going to bed. A cold feeling filled my chest, and I couldn't help but think that the painting had something to do with this change. The space in the room became gloomy and dim, as if there was an invisible presence waiting for me. I tried to reassure myself that it was all just stress, but the strange symptoms continued. As soon as I walked to my desk, I suddenly realized that the painting was no longer there. I can't believe it. I looked around, my heart pounding as my eyes searched the room. Then I saw it, the painting, standing upright on the desk, just under the light of the desk lamp. It came back, and I couldn't figure out how. I felt a coldness coming from behind me. Even though I couldn't see anyone standing there, I could feel the presence, as if there was something waiting for me. I stood there, unable to move, my heart seemed to stop beating, only the sound of my own rapid breathing could be heard. The space in the room became suffocating, and I felt like I was sinking into an invisible abyss, where reality and fear no longer had boundaries. Since then, I cannot escape the feeling of being watched, not only in my house but in my own mind. I had the feeling that I was never truly alone again, and that something ancient was watching over me, an inexplicable presence. Am I truly haunted, or am I just living in a never-ending nightmare? Every night, I was bound by invisible fear, as if I were living in a cage made of darkness and whispers. Something in this house never leaves me alone. No matter how hard I tried to explain, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was always watching me from inside the walls, or from dark places that I couldn't see clearly. Last night, after seeing the shadowy figure in the kitchen, I couldn't stop. My heart was beating wildly, but I still couldn't leave my seat. Every sound of my weak breathing mixed with the stuffy space, and I could only hear the vibration of the phone in my hand. The messages came again, but this time, I didn't dare read them. I don't know what to do anymore. Reality and illusion no longer seemed clearly distinguishable. With a heavy feeling, I forced myself away from the kitchen table, carefully walking through the dark hallway. Every step is a struggle between reason and overwhelming fear. In the darkness, I couldn't help but feel like a pair of invisible eyes were staring at me. Taking a deep breath, I entered the bedroom, but as soon as I closed the door, a soft sound rang out from behind. As if there were a step, something moved in the darkness. This time, I don't dare go back. I sat down on the bed, trying not to let my body shake, but I couldn't stop. My eyes were glued to the window, where the light from the street lamp filtered through the curtains. But it is not a comforting light. It was like a sign of that presence, waiting for something. And then, suddenly, I heard a faint creak, like a shadow approaching, step by slow, determined step. I couldn't move, I couldn't scream, I could only hear my own breathing like a sound tearing through the space. My body was stiff, unable to react, even though all I wanted to do was run away, but I couldn't. As soon as I turned around, the light on the room lamp flickered again. The shadowy shadow I had seen in the kitchen now stood right in front of me. A vague, disintegrating shape, yet strangely clear. A gentle movement in space that I cannot explain. A whisper rang through the air, softly, as if from behind me. That shadow was standing, not saying anything, but I felt its presence stronger than ever. Oh well, it disappeared, as if it had never existed. I couldn't believe my eyes. Only heavy silence remained, a terrifyingly empty space. But I know, it's still there. Invisible, but always present, always watching me from invisible shadows. A suffocating feeling spread through my body. That presence was too big, too strong for me to shake off. It will never let me go, no matter how hard I try to run away. As I walked through the brightly lit streets of the city, the feeling of fear still stuck with me. The phone lay still in his coat pocket, but the obsession did not disappear. The cryptic messages from an anonymous person kept repeating, as if I was trapped in an endless vortex, with no way out. Even when I left the city and went to a quiet cabin, the feeling of restlessness still did not let up. Fear is like a persistent shadow, always present, making it impossible for me to find peace. What I thought might be liberation was just a strange compound of fear. Every night, I felt like there was a dark shadow stalking me, watching me from the dark corners of the cabin. The messages kept coming with inexplicable content, and when I left that dark room, a new message appeared. And no matter how I change my way of life, it still sticks with me, like an indelible presence. On a particularly bad night, I decided to face my fears. I felt like I was imprisoned in my own house, where every room seemed to have invisible eyes staring at me. I can't get rid of this strange feeling. My heart was filled with doubts, not only about the messages but also about myself. I sat there, in the dim living room, looking at the phone that didn't ring again. The painting was still lying in a corner of the room, the eyes of the man in it still stubbornly looked straight at me. My mind affirmed that it was all an illusion, but my body could not escape its obsession. Something had changed within me, and I knew that the presence was not just a figment of my imagination. When I decided to leave the cabin, I felt a change in the air. It wasn't the relief I was expecting, but a thick silence, as if the room had swallowed everything that belonged to me. The light from the street lamp glimmered through the cracks in the door, but even that light couldn't hide the fear in my heart. That night, I slept restlessly, my sleep torn apart by nightmares. I found myself standing in the dark, hurried footsteps echoing in empty rooms. But every time I wake up, I realize that nothing has changed. The house was still the same, quiet and empty, except for its invisible presence lurking in every corner. When I woke up the next morning, I realized that the feeling of inescapability had become a part of me. I couldn't shake it. The truth is, I'm not alone. Everything has changed, and so have I. Even though I turned off every device in the cramped studio, everything remained unbearably quiet. The light from the street lamp filtered through the small window, shining into my quiet room, but even in that silence, I couldn't help but feel that something was waiting, lurking in the darkness. Strangely enough, even though I had turned off all the power sources, I still felt an invisible force floating in the air, as if all the silence around me was a trap, deceiving me into believing that it had passed. But no, I cannot deny that the silence is thicker, a kind of silence that is suffocating, making it difficult to breathe out. The whispers that I once heard, they are no longer hidden in the frequencies of sound waves. They exist more clearly in these quiet moments. Not the sounds, but the feeling of them, as if something was lurking in the crevices of space. I can't understand. Have my nightmares taken over me to the point where everything has become an illusion? Or am I really facing something unexplainable? I sat up suddenly, a feeling of panic rising within me. Every beat of my heart pounded in my ears, but for a strange moment, I felt like I was entering a predetermined space. The air was thick, and I couldn't determine whether it was really thick enough to touch. Those whispers began to echo softly, but they did not come from any obvious source. Suddenly, I turned my head, feeling that there was something in the darkness. I couldn't see anything, but there was something in my room, something unidentifiable, an invisible presence staring at me. I tried to push that thought away, telling myself I was just tired, it was just the stress that had gone on for too long. I don't dare sleep in that room anymore. Every night, I only sleep fitfully, my dreams mixed with reality and illusion. Sometimes, I feel like I'm seeing a person, a shadowy figure that just flashes into view, as if it's standing right behind me, but when I turn around, it's gone. The next time, I was no longer comfortable looking at the pictures on the wall. I used to tell myself they were just inanimate objects, but now, every time I look at them, I feel that invisible gaze is shining straight at me, as if I'm being watched. All I can do is continue to face these hauntings, like a nightmare that cannot be quieted. One dark morning, I decided to check my phone one last time. I'm hoping that everything is over. But as soon as I opened it, a new message appeared. "You can't escape it," the message flashed on the screen. I felt my blood turn cold. This time, I can't pretend it was a joke or paranoia anymore. The picture, the messages, and now the feeling of a presence that follows me. I can't shake it. Every noise, every small change in the space around me made me more panicked. Those signs became clearer each night. There is no doubt that I am not alone. There was an invisible presence, something that was always here, watching me, manipulating me from the darkness. The strange messages continued, but now they felt like advice, or even threats. Those words were as if written by an incomprehensible force, something that did not belong to this world. Every night, as the clock nears 10:30, I start to feel that tension creep up on me. I know what will happen, I know that things will continue to repeat themselves, inevitably. All I could do was stand there, look into the darkness, and pray that I didn't hear any more whispers or strange noises. One night, as I was preparing my meal, trying to keep some normalcy in my life, I felt a chill run down my spine. I started hearing noises, gentle at first, then gradually increasing. The whispering became clearer and clearer, as if someone was standing right behind me. I turned around, but there was no one. Darkness covered the space as if trying to swallow me whole. When I looked back at the clock, its second hand moved like a sharp knife, skipping a beat in the silent air. 10:30, at that moment, everything suddenly stopped. The air was stuffy, something in the space felt thick, as if the room was pressing me against its walls. The ceiling light went out, then flickered again, the cold light of the TV no longer reflecting anything but darkness. At this time, the rattling sound began. The sound was metallic, strong and clear, as if someone was deliberately pulling the drawer. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, and my heart was pounding in my ears. My chest felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand. Something was approaching, something I couldn't explain, but I knew it was there, in this room, right behind me. Panic rose within me. I began to look around, trying to find something, any sign that could explain these phenomena, but I found only emptiness. I can't even tell the line between reality and nightmares anymore. I turned back to look at the TV. The screen was dark, there was no light, there was no image, but the feeling of whispering still existed in the air. The sound seemed to sneak past me, slipping into my mind. I tried calling, but couldn't. Every time I pressed the button, the screen remained dark. Something must have happened to it, or it was strangely controlled. Everything has changed. Every time the clock struck 10:30, I felt extreme tension, an invisible pressure forcing me to face something I couldn't understand. I sat down, my hands shaking, sweat drenching my back. The picture was back in my head, those messages were still ringing in my ears, and the presence was always there, lingering around me. These cannot be mere delusions. Something is really manipulating me, and I can't escape it. In a moment, I realized that there was no way out. Every time I think I can escape, it comes back, like a never-ending spiral. The fear no longer came just from the darkness, but from my own mind, from the very obsessions I had tried to suppress. But now, I realize that I can't hide anymore. That tension continued every time darkness approached. Every time it's 10:30 p.m., I can't help but feel something change in the air. Small but clear signals began to fill the space around me. The light on the ceiling flickered, static rang out as a reminder that I was being monitored, and then, something moved in the darkness. Even though I had prepared myself mentally in advance, I still couldn't face it calmly. The feeling was not the presence of an intruder, but something from within the house itself, from within the walls and crevices. It was such a familiar presence, as if it had existed in this space longer than I thought. One night, I decided to do an experiment. I turned off all the devices in the apartment, including my phone, TV, and computer, and sat there in silence. A silence that could be felt. There was no light, no sound, just heavy air, as if the apartment was breathing, waiting. And then, as the clock neared 10:30, it all started again. The light on the ceiling flickered, then went out. The sound of static rang out again. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. I sat there, hands shaking, eyes staring at the wall, ready for whatever happened. But what I received was not the suddenness of a shadow or a strange noise, but an overwhelming feeling. A feeling as if this room, everything in it, was swallowing me up little by little. The time has come when I can no longer live in this fear. I stood up and went to the window, looking out, trying to find peace in the empty streets. But there was nothing but darkness. I couldn't explain what was happening, but I felt that it had become a part of me. Part of my life, of these long days and nights. Every time the clock struck 10:30, I prepared myself for what was about to happen, but now, I was no longer just a victim of this fear. I am a warrior, even though I cannot defeat it. Everything in my apartment was distorted by this feeling. But I decided I wouldn't let it control me anymore. I began to find ways to face it in my own way, not by running away. It was a fight with no clear winner, but I chose to fight. Even though every night was filled with strange sounds and invisible changes in the air, I persevered. Sometimes, I think about everything I've been through, about how I walked through each nightmare without backing down. Although I cannot escape it completely, I have learned to live with it. And perhaps, that's the only thing I can do. The feeling of not being able to turn off the ringing in my head. My home, my workspace, and me, it was as if they were all suffocated in an unbreakable vortex. Every night, when the clock strikes 10:30, I prepare for the arrival of darkness. It felt like an unspoken promise between me and the room, the silence waiting, as if it was always lurking, just waiting for a moment of my weakness to release its tension and flood into my mind. As for that phone, it's still there, inexplicably. Sometimes I wonder if I have put it in the right place, if it is watching me from some hidden corner, quietly noting my every reaction. On a quiet night, I found myself staring at that phone again, my eyes unable to leave the screen even though it was turned off. I tried to explain what happened. I tried to find a logical reason for all of this. But in the end, perhaps it was this inexplicability that scared me. Messages of unknown origin, strange phenomena, and darkness always surround me. A gloomy feeling filled me, as if this space was not mine. I'm just a passerby, I can't control what happens. I used to think I could master fear, that I could face it. But when night came, and the bell rang again, I realized that I couldn't run away forever. This room, the old furniture, and the eerie silence have all become a part of me, a part of this fear. One evening, as I repeated my routine, trying to get used to the flashing lights and strange noises, I stood in front of the mirror, looking at my reflection. There was a long moment of silence, and I wondered if I could escape, if it was possible to find a way out in these chaotic thoughts. I told myself, I can do it. I have to do it. But the answer did not come from within me, but from an invisible place, where all this strangeness began. Maybe I was wrong. There is no way to end this obsession. Maybe, it will haunt me forever, and no matter how hard I try, I will never be completely free of it. Every night as the clock neared 10:30, as I waited for the light to flash and the bell to ring, I knew that something was waiting for me in the darkness. I can't shake the feeling that everything has a reason, that something is happening in this apartment, in my mind, and maybe I'm just slowly losing the ability to distinguish between reality and the illusions I create. But the only thing I know is that no matter what I do, I will always feel that presence, always feel the darkness watching over me. And perhaps, that is the ultimate truth. Every night, as the light from the hallway lamp faded, I felt the heavy shadow of that presence in the room. The air becomes so thick, sometimes I feel like I can't breathe. The bedroom door always had a crack open, like a door leading into another world that I couldn't enter, but I also couldn't leave. At first, I tried to rationalize everything. Maybe it was stress, maybe it was the old light bulbs, or the impact of outside sounds. But every night, when the clock struck 10:30, I felt the tension increase. The dim lights and strange noises continued, as if they were staging a play that I couldn't avoid. The rattling sounds in the drawers, the heavy footsteps on the floor, everything became too real. I sat silently, my eyes fixed on the opposite wall, but it felt like something was looking at me from the corner of the room. The gentle breeze blew by, creating strange sounds, making me feel even more that the shadow I had long feared was not a product of my imagination. I tried to accept it. There were times when I wondered if I was dreaming or not, but every night, that presence became clearer. One night, I decided to experiment. I unplugged all electrical devices from the sockets and turned off all devices, including landlines. I sat there, in the quiet space, to face my fear. When the clock showed 10:30, I sat and waited, my hands sweating and my heart beating fast. The minutes seemed to last forever. And then, again, I heard the bell. But this time, not from a landline phone. There was no one on the line. There was only the hiss of static electricity, then a cold wind whistling through the room, as if something was trying to escape. In that moment, it dawned on me that maybe I wasn't the only one here. Maybe this apartment, with its cold brick walls and old furniture, held something that had stayed, something I couldn't see, but I could certainly feel. Every time I close the door and lock it, that presence returns, as if it never left. I can't explain what's going on. But there's one thing I know clearly, I can't run away forever. That shadow will never leave me alone, no matter what I do. And perhaps, that is my biggest fear, that I am never truly alone, no matter how much I think I have escaped it. That feeling, an unidentifiable presence, standing still in the darkness, filled the space, enveloping my every thought. Even though I couldn't see anything clearly, the feeling like something was watching me from the darkness grew stronger and stronger. The air became thick, as if time had stopped, waiting for something to happen. It wasn't a direct threat, but I felt a tension, an inaudible whisper that lurked in the back of my mind. My steps were heavy, not because I was tired, but because fear seeped into every muscle. Every time I turned around, I felt like that shadow was sliding after me, even though there was nothing behind, and any noise startled me. I try not to think about it, but its existence is undeniable. Even when I tried to leave the house, it still clung to me, like a ghost that would never let go. As I walked down the trail, through the tall trees, I felt an entanglement, as if something was stopping me from continuing. The branches and shadows were all around me, and I began to feel a rising tension, a feeling that something was behind me, in my peripheral vision, watching me. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I didn't dare turn back. I knew if I did, I would only panic more. My steps stopped, almost automatically. I felt the silence around me, but that presence was even clearer. It has no clear shape, no specific sound, but it really exists. The trees were thick, darkness fell, and I felt a presence, strong and inevitable. Everything around me seemed to change, no longer familiar. The trail before me, shaded by tall trees, now felt like a maze, a place I couldn't easily escape. I wondered, had I entered another space, a space that only I could perceive, or had I been engulfed in fear and lost the ability to distinguish reality? Finally, I took a deep breath, trying to escape the panic that was gnawing at my mind. I can't let it control me anymore. I turned around and walked faster and faster, as if trying to run away from that shadow, but each step made me feel it closer. My footsteps echoed in the quiet space, but more and more I felt that shadow following me, as if there was always someone standing right behind me. I didn't dare turn back, but I knew that something was waiting for me behind. This feeling, this undeniable presence, frightened me once again. My heart was pounding, my chest felt like it was being squeezed by tension. My flashlight flickered as if it, too, was controlled by fear. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my breathing. Even though I tried to convince myself that it was just a normal panic attack, a physical reaction to the environment, there was no denying that something, or someone, was watching me from the shadows. With every step I took, I clearly felt that something was moving around me, weaving through the trees, moving in silence. I turned around, hoping to find a logical reason for all these sounds, but there was nothing but trees swaying in the breeze. That wind carried a metallic smell, a smell I couldn't identify but was all too familiar to me. That's the smell I smell every time I get close to that shadow, every time I feel its presence watching over me. As I continued walking, my eyes never left the darkness, always glancing back, wondering if someone was following me. This feeling of being watched became more and more distinct, and I became less and less able to convince myself that this was just my imagination. Each step seemed to last, and I felt as if I was walking in another dimension where everything was watching, waiting for an action from me. Coldness ran down my spine as I heard a strange noise, a scratching sound, as if someone was dragging along the ground. The sound got closer and closer, so close that I could feel the breath of the presence behind me. My heart was pounding, my throat was tight, I couldn't utter a word. The light from the flashlight flickered across the ground, casting shadows on the surrounding trees and bushes, but nothing was clear. The dimness of the light made it impossible to be sure what I was seeing, but the feeling that something was moving right behind me, in the darkness, was undeniable. At that moment, I heard a whisper, low, steady, as if someone was calling my name from behind. Despite all reason, a feeling of despair rose within me. I wanted to turn back, wanted to know what was lurking in that darkness, but part of me was afraid that if I did, I would have to face something I couldn't bear. I took a deep breath, then decided to keep walking, even though I didn't know what I was doing. I forced myself to face that darkness, to the presence that was watching me, to everything I couldn't explain. But a cold wind suddenly blew past, extinguishing my flashlight, leaving only complete darkness surrounding me. As I stood there in the dark, I didn't know what to do. The feeling of being watched, the feeling that someone is always standing right behind me, continues to cling. The darkness is no longer something far away, but a part of the air, a part of the space that I cannot escape. It feels like an invisible darkness clings to me, not only on quiet nights, but even when I try to enter a new day. Although the morning light shines through the windows, the space in the apartment seems to retain a darkness that cannot be dispelled. With every step I took, every breath I took, there was an undeniable feeling that something was wrong. Just paranoia? A product of my mind? Or is there something really hiding, quietly observing me from the dark corner of this space? That feeling cannot be chased away. I felt it in the shadows stretching across the walls, in the reflections in the mirrors. Although it may be a haunting nightmare, I still can't escape the thought that there is a strange presence in this house, something inexplicable reigns in the darkness, waiting for the opportunity to reveal itself. I thought about that old clock, about the terrifying silence it brought. That night, the bell rang in the darkness, an invisible bell, as if it had escaped from my own mind. But there is one truth that I cannot deny: the watch has become a part of this space, a part of strange things that I cannot understand. Since I brought that watch home, everything seems to have changed. Not clear events, but feelings, fleeting movements, inexplicable sounds. Those were the cold chills running down my spine, the inexplicable looks from the dark corners of my room, the nightmares that couldn't be dispelled. No matter how hard I tried, the feeling of fear continued to cling to me. I still wonder if that watch really carried a curse, or if I was simply too scared and couldn't get out of my own thoughts. But no matter what, I cannot deny that I have been pulled into a strange world, where the lines between reality and nightmare are no longer clear. Looking back now, I don't know if I was truly free from that presence, or if I was just living in a never-ending spiral. Maybe I let fear take over, or maybe it really does exist. But what I know for sure is that no matter what I do, no matter how far I run, it will still be there, in a place where the darkness never completely disappears. I sat in the dark, my eyes never leaving the clock, feeling tense as if every second that passed was heavy. The air in the room seemed to thicken, even breathing felt difficult. I was up all night, unable to close my eyes, unable to relax. Everything around me seemed to be slowing down, tense, and my ears could only hear small noises, but all those sounds became too loud in this quiet space. Every breath, every heartbeat, even the sound of the air conditioner, all startled me, making me unable to escape the feeling of being monitored. The longer the night, the deeper the feeling of confusion. I stared at the clock, my patience seemed to have run out. My hands trembled as I saw the clock near 1:37, but I tried to keep my mind, trying not to let fear defeat me. But when the last bell rang, a tight pain tightened in my chest, a feeling of being oppressed and suffocated. I could hear that sharp sound as if it were piercing through my bones, an echo that felt like a punch to reality. It was only one sound, but it made the air in the room stuffy, making it impossible for me to breathe. The seconds felt like an eternity, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for me, lurking in the darkness, watching me, waiting for me to make one wrong move so it could attack. When the bell stopped, the room returned to an eerie silence. I couldn't be sure if I had just experienced a hallucination or not. But that feeling was so real, so clear. I feel like something has changed in this space, something inexplicable but present. The next morning, I walked around the room, checking every corner, every shadow, wondering if I was haunted by what happened last night. But no matter how much I tried, I couldn't escape that feeling. Everything in the room was silent, but a presence still lingered somewhere, as if a ghost had not left. I decided to face this situation. But do I have the courage to do so? Or will I continue to live in fear, clinging to the unexplainable? These questions are constantly swirling in my head, and I know, whether I like it or not, I will have to face these things sooner or later. That night, I sat down and looked at the clock again, determined not to let it win. But as soon as the bell rang again, I couldn't be sure that I would continue living as before. What truth will be revealed? And can I face it without falling apart? The feeling of confusion and fear from the watch has caused you to enter an inescapable spiral, where the distinction between reality and illusion begins to fade. Even though you have decided to remove this object from your life, the memory of it continues to follow you like a ghost, constantly gnawing at your mind and soul. The chime from the clock is more than just a sound, it has become a symbol of fear and uncertainty, a reminder of something beyond your control. Even if you hide the watch in a closet, its presence will not disappear. The evenings become heavier, when every time you hear a noise, a part of you still can't help but think of the clock, even though it's no longer clearly in sight. Every time I look at the dust marks where the clock once hung, a feeling of fear rises, like a scar that will never heal. Whether you like it or not, memories and strange phenomena stick with you. Part of you couldn't help but wonder if the watch actually had some power, or if it was just a reflection of the fear in your own mind. The feeling of being watched still cannot be dismissed, like a shadow silently following you, always waiting for a moment when you relax your guard. Maybe you did the right thing by hiding the watch, but can you really escape that obsession? Will one day, when you can't resist anymore, will the bell ring again, breaking the long-standing silence? Or perhaps, these strange feelings are just traces of fear that you cannot wash from your memory? Even though I tried to hide, fear still wouldn't let me go. After many weeks, I began to realize that liberation was not about throwing away the watch or any object. It's about accepting that there are things in life that cannot be explained, and sometimes the only thing to do is live with them. Day after day, I continued to cling to a normal life, even though questions kept spinning in my mind. But fear is not always overwhelming. I began to learn how to live with the obsessions and shadows in my mind. I understand that sometimes, peace only comes when we stop looking for an explanation, stop trying to control the uncontrollable. And then, one night, as I stood on the balcony, looking up at the night sky, no more bells, no more watching, I realized something. The ghosts in life are not always things we can see, but things we cannot let go. Fear can make us see things as vivid and threatening, but when we face them, it's just part of life's journey. From that moment on, I no longer looked at the clock like before. I'm no longer waiting for it to ring. I understand that, although something still lurks in those shadows, the most important thing is that I survived all those long nights and paranoid dreams. Finally, the old watch became a part of the past, and I also learned how to let it go.